This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at thebatmanuniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
Gotham City, like any other large metropolis, abounds in girls of all shapes and sizes. Debutantes, nurses, stenographers, and librarians.
Gotham City Library, Miss Gordon speaking.
Lopez hair removal. This is Jose.
Holy transformation. 1 minute, plain Barbara Gordon, librarian and Commissioner Gordon's daughter. And the next minute, something new has been added. Batgirl, modeled after her idol, Batman.
Holy apparition! No, Boy Wonder, I'm Batgirl. You are no longer alone, Capes Crusaders.
It took me 3 years to track down the Jade Gato, and 3 more to figure out how to steal it.
Funny, it only took me 10 minutes to figure out how to snatch it back. No matter how you do it.
Salvete, meet Newman asks Stella at Batgirl the Oracle of the Barbara Gordon Podcast, episode 236 for July MMXXIII. Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage backed issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. We're in the summer blockbuster. We had him on for part 1, or act 1, I guess I should say, and this is act 2. We'll have him on, hopefully, fingers crossed, for act 3, unless I just become so frustrated I kick him off and don't finish.
Oh, man.
Things. Could you imagine? I call him Josue. Other people call him Joshua Lepin Bertoni. Welcome back.
Surprise.
Okay, we're just, we're going to get into this thing. We've kind of done all the pre-gaming, I think, in the previous one. We know the history and everything, and you brought a lot of insider knowledge for Act 1, so I think we're just going to continue that. But before we even begin that, do you know what animal this is? Is that a good question? What is this?
Man, so Stella had me watch a video yesterday, and she's like, I'm going to have a follow-up question. So I'm thinking, like, whose side are you on? Or, like, is it possible? Why was he eating this? I did not think it was going to be, like, which animal is this?
Well,
like,
I've got a follow-up, but you just have to answer this question. What's this called?
You said emu at one point about
it's
something.
Not an emu. bird. Okay, this is a capybara. Now, shout out to the mayor of T-Ticket, aka Harry's mom, for sending this to me. But I did send you a video.
Is Harry's mom a mayor?
She's not in her wildest dreams. She is also very corrupt. There's a whole backstory.
Oh my God.
There's a whole backstory. I did send you a video.
The backstory of our supporting cast is just wild.
It's wild. So I sent you a video. It involved a pelican, that bird, and a capybara. Now, you have 4 options. It's up to you which one you choose. Are you ready?
Oh my God. What's about to happen here?
What was happening in the video? Was the pelican trying to murder the capybara, trying to massage the capybara, trying to eat bugs off of the capybara, or tailoring suits for the capybara, like measuring it with its beak?
What if there was a secret 5th option?
What is the secret 5th option?
That's what I'm trying to come up with.
Okay, well, you do have to come down on one of those 4, I feel like, unless you.
So maybe the pelican is a vampire.
Oh.
And he was trying to turn the capybara into a vampire so they could all take over. But the problem is the pelican does not have teeth, which makes him the worst vampire ever. So it's like, imagine, what is a vampire without teeth? Like, what do you even do then?
Yeah.
So I guess that would be the trying to eat him option, but it's like secret 5th option, which trying to eat him
and also failing it. Yes.
And trying to start a vampire apocalypse, which I feel like would be far deadlier than like a zombie apocalypse, because like zombies don't fly. Vampires can fly.
That is true.
Vampires can mind control, you know?
Yep. And they're quick. And yeah, it would be far deadlier. Well,
yeah, and zombies can't like solve complex riddles, and vampires can.
Yes.
Like in Walking Dead, they have like string and like cans, like this will stop the walkers. Like you got a vampire punk, they'll just fly over it and be like, "You're dead," blah.
Yeah, they can still use their brains.
Yeah. The only reason why we as a society are still alive is because that pelican does not have teeth.
Okay.
That would have started the vampire apocalypse right there. We are lucky.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. You believe the pelican is an insidious creature. So the backstory is that my former BFF from Earth 2, Shayna, and I are in this constant sort of battle about pelicans and the capybara. So I decided to ask Twitter, and it was a tie between trying to murder capybara and tailoring suits for capybara, with one person voting for trying to eat bugs on the capybara. But you sort of sided with me, so I feel like that side won. So pelicans are as bad as I imagine them to be. Okay. Well, before we get into the reviews, also, we just have the Find Your Joy segment, which is Shag's Mac and Cheese of Comfort and Joy. Now, we did, of course, talk about in the previous month, you had an anniversary coming up and you were taking some me time. In between that time and now, how have you been finding your joy?
So I won't get too much on the air. You know what happened off the air, but I will briefly say that one of the families I work with suffered a very big tragedy. So we've been dealing with that a lot the last few weeks and trying to find joy. And one of the things we did to find joy was I took the kids and the family to a smash room a few days ago, and that was a joyous thing for them. They were able to take their frustrations out by throwing pieces of glass against the thing, breaking plates, breaking printers. That was pretty joyous. And then they wanted to see Spider-Verse again. I said, yeah, let's see Spider-Verse again. And they've been like quoting all of like the memes and stuff from the movie. And I'm up to seeing it 5 times now. So like, which is the most I've seen a movie in theaters in like years. Like I can't remember the last time I went to a movie in theaters 5 times, but it's that good. And then I'm about to do San Diego Comic-Con with Donovan. Of course, Stella is always with us in our hearts. She stopped 2017 was her last San Diego with us. So, but it's it's crazy. Oh, and I have to tell you something about a friend of ours at Comic-Con, off mic.
Okay.
Man, it's so you know, it's kind of joyous, you know, doing that again. And some joy. My Adventures with Superman. Have you seen it yet? First 3 episodes are on Adult Swim and formerly HBO Max, now Max. I don't like that new name because Max is too generic, because it's like, are you talking about the human or the streaming service?
Yeah.
But that show is very good. Has kind of an early 90s like anime vibe to it, and it's fun. It's a nice modernized take on Superman. I think you would enjoy it.
Okay, sounds good. I was also the new editor of TBU had asked if I watched the new Batman film that had come out, and I said no, and he said that Barbara has an interesting characterization. So I'm hesitant when
The
someone says it like
new
that.
Batman film.
Yeah, the direct-to-video one. I can't remember which one it is. He said that she's Oracle or something, but whenever someone like presents it in that way, I get a little hesitant. I asked as like a villain joke, and he said no, but maybe I'll give it a go.
There's so many of these direct to DVD movies.
Yeah, I can't remember the title.
There was the Doom that came to Gotham.
That might be what it was. Yeah,
but I don't even remember Barbara being in that one. It was like Cassandra was.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Not sure. Yeah, I've only seen Spider-Man once. I want to see it again, but my time is very limited. So I'm definitely going to buy it on DVD. So I think I'll just wait. And then any other film that I really want to see in theaters, I kind of save space for that. Like yesterday, I went to see Mission Impossible. I was really excited about it, and I enjoyed it. But they killed off my favorite character, so I'm not very happy about that.
Does Tom Cruise die?
I'm not going to spoil who died. Just know that somebody does.
Thanks for the spoiler.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for the spoiler. I'm super excited. Next week, as of this recording, the FIFA Women's World Cup begins in Australia. Of course, with Australia and them being so far ahead, there are going to be some really wacky times I'll be up watching things. But definitely rooting for USA and England would be my two teams. I'm wearing a soccer kit, Krieger. But she wasn't called up, but she's my favorite player. So I think that's primarily it. And then enjoying all the young adult literature that I am reading for my class, which I'll probably be talking about in the literature recommendation. Okay, are you ready to get into it?
Let's get down to business.
Yes. Okay, so we are in Act
Black Mass.
Yes, good thing I know, because otherwise it would have been a spoiler. But this is Act 2, called Tides, as a refresh from Act 1. Personally, I didn't think it was too bad, because I know people have been telling me it's kind of bad. And I guess the big reveal is that Steph was behind this situation because she was trying to help. She did invite everyone, but Matches Malone didn't show up because she didn't know that Matches Malone and Batman were the same person. So that's kind of like the big thing. So I will be doing the synopses, and then we'll talk about it. Some of these issues I honestly have nothing to say, but I'm sure Josh will have some insider information. And then, of course, towards the end, I'll have a lot of stuff to say about some particular story points that happened. Thanks to DC Wikia for the synopses. Some of them are long, but at least it gives you an idea. All of these issues came out, or the cover date, November 2004. So we're going to get started. So first up, part 1, Undertow, Detective Comics 798. Writer Anderson Gabrick, penciler Pete Woods, inker Cam Smith, colorist Jason Wright. The news about the collapse of Gotham since the gang war began are all over the media, and the most shocking among them is the first ever video capture of Batman carrying the unconscious body of Darla Akista, daughter of mob leader Henry Akista. Soon after the shooting of Lewis Memorial High School, Darla died from the bullet wound in her shoulder, and the Akista family decided to pay back all the gangs responsible for her death. Meanwhile, several concerned citizens of Gotham have gathered at the city hall, hoping to get an answer from the authorities about the measures to stop the violence. Oracle keeps a close eye on the situation, and she notices that Tim Drake is among the crowd. Tim feels guilty for being inactive when he could be helping Batman to control the situation, and when he listens to Arturo Rodriguez talking about his loss of faith in Batman, Tim feels even worse. Meanwhile, Oracle contacts Batman and reports the current situation on every hotspot. Oracle also tells him that she feels overwhelmed by the load of work she has to do. And still, she would like to be more active. She is also concerned that Batman might be mad at her for breaking up with Nightwing. Good Lord, who cares? Because he sent Black Canary and Huntress on a mission far away, or simply because what happened with Stephanie Brown. Batman tells her that none of that matters and that he doesn't want to call Stephanie to help them since he doesn't want to put her in danger. Oracle tells him that without her help, they are still in need of people, and Batman is currently going to meet someone who might help with that trouble. Commissioner Akins is waiting at the rooftop of the GCPD headquarters, and Batman joins him to discuss the situation. Batman wants to control the entire police department for 8 hours in order to get the situation under control, but Akins refuses since he has lost trust in Batman after the events at the high school, and also because, well, that's not the right thing to do. Meanwhile, on the streets, the violence keeps uprising, and Renee Montoya does her best to stop Pistolera and Vicious, but she is injured in the shoulder by one of Vicious's daggers. At that moment, at Leslie's clinic, a group of police officers has arrived looking to apprehend some of the criminals under Leslie's care. Onyx, who has just recovered, escapes just in time and avoids being seen by the police. Tim Drake is struggling with a hard decision, and after considering his options, he makes a decision. Meanwhile, Alexandra Kosov meets with a mysterious person who has killed her bodyguards and offers her protection from the backlash that is about to come from everybody in Gotham against her and her gang. A few moments later, Batman arrives at Alexandra's apartment and notices a trail of blood still warm on the floor. Right after that, he hides after listening to strange sounds coming from outside. The door of the apartment is broken down and several armed thugs start shooting in every direction, but they stop when they realize that the place is empty. Batman takes a chance and drops on them, takes them out, and leaves one thug for questioning. Batman learns that the hit was ordered by Henry Akista, and he gets on the move, reporting the events to Oracle. Tim Drake finally arrives at Wayne Manor, where he is welcomed by Alfred, who is glad to see him, but said that he has decided to stop living a quote-unquote normal life. Tim retrieves his old outfit and climbing to one of Gotham's tallest buildings, Tim puts on his Robin costume, asking forgiveness for breaking his promise, but making the right decision. Whew. Okay. So some notes for me. Batman admits to not treating Steph exactly fairly, which I did appreciate. But he still doesn't want her involved because she couldn't handle it, is what he says.
It's interesting that he admits that he doesn't treat her fairly, but he says it to Barbara and not to the person that he should actually be saying it to.
Yeah. Still has Babs acting as operator, running all communication through BM, so no wonder she feels like she's getting worn out because she has to keep, like, she's the go-between, which is super frustrating. And then we'll see what happens later on in the betrayal issue.
Betrayal.
Tim's struggle and then finally putting on the costume. Are you surprised that we don't see a conversation between him and his father, Jack? And do you think Jack would have understood? I mean, we do later get one, but kind of his like.
Yeah, I have notes about the conversation with Jack, but I'll get to those notes when we, get to that issue. Sure. Honestly, in 2004, I was more surprised that this was not happening in an issue of Robin. Like, it felt like Tim becoming Robin again should have happened in an issue of Robin of the crossover. That was kind of weird because if you're just reading Robin, which and skipping all the crossover stuff, like just one issue, he's in the school and he's like, oh no, my friend got shot. Then the next issue, he's Robin again.
Yeah. What happened in between?
Yeah, I thought that was weird. And there was times where in Tim's title during crossovers where stuff that I thought should happen in his title would happen in other titles. Like in Cataclysm, there was a period years before this, there was a period where Tim was separated from his father for a while because he had run away from home. And when he finally reunites with his father and hugs him, it's an issue of Nightwing during Cataclysm. And I'm like, oh, this should have been Tim's title. But that's just how I feel crossovers should work.
Yeah.
You had mentioned the Barbara and Batman conversation. Were you going back to that, or were you just setting up?
Well, I was just going to say in regards to having a conversation between Tim and his father, I would have liked to have had it happen before he put on the suit. Because once he puts on the suit, which of course we'll talk about, then he's really got to explain everything. But I wish he could have been there to sort of process everything with his father beforehand and then put it on, because that just feels more of the Tim Drake sort of way. And I think Jack would have understood, which he ultimately does at the end. But I think having that conversation would have been better because, now he just feels really guilt-ridden that he's betrayed his promise to his father.
The other thing, too, is this school shooting was on all of the news stations. Yeah. So, Jack and Dana would have seen it and been like, oh, that's Tim's school. Is he... So, he should be in contact with his father at this point. Because, I don't know, you find out your kid is in a school shooting. Your instinct is, let's talk. Let's go to him. Let's comfort him. Is he okay?
Yeah.
And the implication is kind of that they don't talk until Tim shows up in the Robin costume. I think Tim is avoiding talking to Jack until the last moment possible because he's ashamed of what he's doing.
Yeah. You were going to say something about that.
Yeah, no, the conversation, because Batman, his thing is let's put all emotions aside and get everyone to run efficiently. But I think that because Barbara's emotional needs are not being tended to, she's not going to run as efficiently. And like this conversation with Batman is like a cry for help. Like, it's like, hey, are you mad at me? Like, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. This would be a moment where like Batman should have a personal talk with her so that stuff is off of her mind and she could then for like operate better. But he's not. And yeah, there's a lot of Batman not making the right decisions for people and ignoring cries for help with his friends.
Yeah, I do call him a jerk, but I feel like he's learned from this sort of previous situation happening before. So I also believe that it might be a mischaracterization to a certain extent.
Or, like most people that learn things, they unlearn them.
That is true. He needs to
like I mean, this whole thing, it's like Stephanie's like, it's all my fault, but like, who wrote the war games?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Batman, Did you have anything to say about the Commissioner Atkins scene?
Yes. Do you feel like Batman's request for I guess 8 hours is a reasonable request? Do you think that it would have actually done anything if Batman had control of his force? And in the end, he kind of takes over, but we haven't gotten to that yet. But yeah, I mean, what do you think about this request?
Was this a reasonable request? In the words of the great philosopher Francis Jean-Jacques, hell no.
Give me your men for 8 hours. Oh my
God. Balls on this man to like
how does he walk with them?
The police commissioner in the face and say like, boy, like I'm with that. I'm with Atkins on this. Like, who do you think you are? Like, this isn't the Justice League and the Teen Titans or whatever. Like, this is the police. Like, you're not a cop. And again, it's him thinking he knows what's best for everyone, but like, everything in this war games is happening right under his nose. He doesn't realize it's his war games until like halfway through Act 2. Yeah. He doesn't realize that like one of his men has been replaced by like a supervillain until like way too late. He doesn't realize like that, Oracle, Nightwing, and Robin are all like having like anxiety about everything. And if he realizes that he's not doing anything about it, now he wants to manage a whole police force. This was an interesting time period because like with Gordon, like gone, like we get like a new dynamic with a new commissioner where they're less familiar with each other and that creates some drama. So I enjoyed that part of it because like comics kind of have this reflex where if you pull too far away from the traditional status quo, it'll snap back. And then like, of course, a few years from now, we had Gordon back as the police commissioner and you had that traditional dynamic back. But I like the periods where like we have something new because it gives us an opportunity for different dynamics like this.
Any other, I mean, I agree with you there. I don't know how much it would have accomplished because if he's not able to manage his own team well and they know him intimately, then what's it going to be like with a bunch of people that he's not really worked with? I feel like it could have been a dangerous situation on both sides.
Imagine you're a cop and like you're told we're taking orders from Batman for the next 8 hours. Like, what in the world? Yeah. This isn't no man's land.
Right. Yeah. Any other thoughts on part 1?
Nosotros.
Okay. Part 2, philosophical differences. This was Batman Legends of the Dark Knight 183. Writer A.J. Lieberman, penciler Brad Walker, inker Troy Nixie, and colorist Javier Rodriguez. And I will say that this is my favorite of Act 2 art. I thought that this was amazing art in this particular issue. Sorry, I don't have a digital copy. I just have my Kindle. Batman comes to the conclusion that in order to find the responsible party behind the gang war, he must use another identity different than Batman, and that's how Matches Malone, irony, starts looking for answers in the streets of Gotham. Meanwhile, Catwoman takes Spoiler to the East End and tells her the reason why the plan she tried to implement didn't work is because Matches Malone is in fact Batman. Spoiler tries to run away and fix her mistake, but Catwoman stops her and both start to fight each other, of course, because that's a useful way of our time. In the end, Catwoman defeats Spoiler and prevents her from making more mistakes. Elsewhere, James Gordon decides that he should be helping the city in any way he can, and he goes to the GCPD headquarters to talk to Commissioner Akins, who tells Gordon about Batman's intentions of taking control of the entire GCPD. Gordon gives Akins some advice and agrees with his decision of not leaving it all to Batman. Catwoman goes to Holly and Karen's apartment along with Slower, and she tells Holly to watch Slower closely and not let her go anywhere, which of course doesn't work out. Meanwhile, Catwoman goes out, but before leaving, Slower makes her promise that she wouldn't tell Batman the truth. After a long night of matches, Malone questioning all kinds of thugs and people with criminal connections, Batman thinks that the responsible party for the gang war is Diego Escobedo, current leader of the Escobedo cartel. He contacts Oracle and lets her know about his worries about their need for people. And at that moment, Robin joins Batman, much to the Dark Knight's surprise. Batman contacts all the members of the Bat family and tells them to start acting before the police curfew starts. Batman and Robin start patrolling the city, and Batman reveals that the person behind it all developed a plan without flaws, and that he would make that person pay when it's all over. So look in the mirror there, sir. In the meantime, Catwoman goes to Tompkins Clinic, where she reveals the truth about Flora's mistake to Leslie Tompkins and asks her to pass on the information to Batman, so as a workaround to her promise, in order to get the situation under control. Batman goes to James Gordon's house and asks him to intercede on his behalf with Akins, but Gordon refuses since he believes that Akins is doing the right thing, and Batman would cross the line by taking the law into his own hands. At dawn in the North End, the house of Diego Escobedo has been attacked, and all of his bodyguards and henchmen are dead. Diego has been taken to the basement of his home and is tied to a chair, which in turn is tied to a post. The aggressor has covered Diego's mouth with duct tape and is about to torture him using a welder gun until he reveals all the information he wants. Okay. So let's talk about the appearance of Jim Gordon, his conversation with Akins, and then his conversation with Batman, which I felt was very reminiscent of that garden conversation, my favorite issue, in fact, of No Man's Land. That was almost completely silent. Like they just kind of stare at each other and because they feel sad. Yeah, what are your thoughts on these two conversations, and I guess Jim in general in this particular issue?
It was some of the strongest stuff of Act Two. I like, and like I said, there's nuance, and even among what I like about the Batman and Gordon relationship, like during this period, is that it wasn't all like Jim Gordon just being on his side saying, like, lighting the bat signal and saying, oh, the Riddler, sent us this note. What do you think of it? There is some general tension there. And I like Gordon saying, no, I agree with Atkins. And like, if you would have said that to me, like, I would have taken you in. I like the conversation with Gordon and Atkins where he's like, I almost took him in right then and there. And Gordon said, I had that thought so many times during like the first year. It was a very interesting conversation. Who wrote this issue again?
A.J. Lieberman, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was good.
Yeah. I think sometimes we forget because we very much romanticize this relationship between Batman and Jim. And it is a very good, strong relationship. But also, you have to think about what Jim goes through as someone who is on that side of the law, and that he probably struggles daily with helping out Batman, even though Batman might be his closest friend. And so to have that verbalized, for him to verbalize it rather than internalizing it and being on his own to somebody else and like agreeing with him, and then also to verbalize it to Batman and also say like, yeah, you put me in some tricky positions, and also I think you really overstepped by asking this particular thing, I think is good for both Jim as well as Batman needs to check his entitlement, I think, because he feels like he should be able to do
there is a lot of Bat entitlement. Yeah. He's like, whew. I mean, it's kind of fitting that like Brother Eye is like, a year or two away at this point, because like this guy, like, Tower of Babel didn't teach him a lesson. Like
the Batman and Robin reunion, I didn't talk about in the synopsis there, but it is both a comedic as well as a sad scene, because like they're there and it's just like no one's saying anything. And I think Babs is saying like, this is the time where you would say something, and there's nothing there. So was it realistic that there is this lack of communication, conversation, and like, let's work through what had gone down and feel like, yeah, that's just who Batman is. But then later Robin, talks to Night. I guess it's the next issue. He wants to kind of sort through those feelings, but nothing happens. What do you think about this silence?
Rereading this, I had to remember the context of what came before. I was like, Batman and Tim have been emotional with each other in the past. Like, I was like even thinking of like when Tim's mom died and like Batman was like sitting, by the bed with Tim and like helping him cry. I'm like, these are men that are capable of emotion. Then I'm like, oh wait, yeah, like Tim's mad because Batman hired his like ex-girlfriend to be Robin and stuff like that. But why is like Batman mad at Tim? He like if it's because he quits, like that's kind of petty because like
Yeah.
his dad legit found out, and which like even if you delve into that, it just raises a whole like ethical question of, what were we doing for all these years letting Tim be Robin behind Jack Drake's back? Like, was that really something that was ethical? So, but at the same time, like these are imperfect characters that don't always do the right thing, and that's what makes it interesting. So, was it realistic that they would be silent in the scene? Yes. It's not their best behavior, but
Yeah.
under the circumstances, totally.
Well, it's interesting, and I will say more so than Batman hiring Steph, I think Tim is also very upset that Batman told Steph his secret identity. I think that's kind of the start of their downfall in their relationship.
Yeah, I feel like they had moved past that at this point because that had been like a little longer ago.
Okay.
But yeah, like almost. What issue of Robin was it? Are we on now?
Oh, are we on?
In War Games, yeah.
130.
130. Yeah, so it had been like a few years like of publishing comics at that point, like at least maybe like around because I feel like Batman told her around issue 80 something and we're in issue like 130 something. So I think that they're kind of past that.
I disagree. I just think that's a big betrayal. So I'm just gonna say I disagree with you. We'll let Donovan toss the dice and say which one he agrees with. Yeah, I do somewhat agree with you. I mean, the situation is awkward and maybe it's not the time to have an in-depth conversation. But Batman did try to have a conversation with Nightwing, and Nightwing was like not ready to have it because he does say, like, are you okay? So I'm like, why is he carving out space for Nightwing but not for Tim? So that's the only thing that
I think because Nightwing of all of them is like the one that's having the hardest time keeping it together.
Oh yeah, on the edge of a breakdown. Yeah.
The edge of a breakdown. He fell off that edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's trying to climb back up.
We are in full blown breakdown.
Yeah. Catwoman telling spoiler about Matches Malone. Do you think that was the right move for her?
Yes.
Okay.
Desperate times, desperate measures.
Well, what was she thinking that was going to accomplish? She had to have known that this was going to be bad. It was going to break
because this is a woman that is carrying all of this on her shoulders.
Which woman?
Stephanie.
Okay.
Stephanie is carrying all this on her shoulders. This is all my fault. This is all my fault.
I see.
And Selena has some information that doesn't completely absolve Stephanie of responsibility, but it like, okay, this isn't 100% your fault. Like there is more. Like, and in that situation, Stephanie deserves to know the truth. And the city on fire, city on. I showed the kids that scene, like from Sweeney Todd on like YouTube. For context, when I say the kids I'm talking about are teenagers in this case, YouTube and BTO listeners. Yeah. These are the teenagers. I didn't show a 5-year-old Sweeney Todd. Like, oh, I want the pies. But anyway, the city's on fire.
I want the pies. I'm seeing that in October on Broadway. Yeah, that'll be an interesting experience.
Anyway, so the city's on fire and like people are dying, so this isn't the time to like hold things in.
Okay.
I think like secrets and decorum goes out the window there.
Okay. So her intention was good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, like Stephanie is falling apart and she thinks this is all her fault, and Selena has information. Well, it's only 70% your fault, or
yeah.
I don't even know if I would say 70%. That's actually this would be an interesting question for listeners. Like, is this more Bruce's fault or more Stephanie's fault?
I guess we should say, let's try to remember that question, especially for, well, I mean, I could do a Twitter poll, but we should also revisit that, I guess, at the end of Act 3.
Yeah. I guess I'm going to say more Bruce's fault, though, because he legitimately, like, wrote the War Games.
I would lean towards that. No one's going to trust me because I'm objectively, I always say, the Batgirl thing, but I would, I mean, she's a child. She was trying to do stuff for the good, and it just didn't work out for her. So Catwoman telling Leslie. Thoughts on that?
Like I said, city on fire, people dying. If you have information that can stop it from happening, which is like, hey, these are Batman's war games, he might have a way to stop them. She can't say, oh, these are Batman's war games without like there being a follow up question, which is, wait, how did this happen or whatever. So there's no time for distractions. You have to cut to the chase. Lives are on the line. So I agree with Selena telling Leslie. I think she should have directly told Batman because, just take it directly to the source and save time. And also telling Leslie just kind of like set Leslie off on a path that is very weird. And I know that you've been told that there's like a bad thing that happens with Leslie Tompkins in this arc, which that actually happens in the sequel, kind of. Well, like it happens off panel and during War Games, and you find out about it during not War Crimes. Maybe it's War Crimes. There's War Drums, War Games, War Crimes. So I think it happens. I think you find out about it in War Crimes, but then it's retconned years later. So like the whole Leslie thing's a mess, and I have to speak in riddles because like you don't have the full picture yet. But this does.
Can you tell me do you think she would have done what she does that I don't know about if this hadn't happened? If Catwoman hadn't told her?
Good question, because what Catwoman told her, like, this was my first time rereading this since 2004, and in rereading this with the full picture of like war crimes and everything that came afterwards, like I actually see that like, oh, she's doing this like right after Catwoman had this conversation with her. That's weird. This means that she was planning this at this point in the arc. I thought that she did this spur of the moment in Act 3, but nope. She had this plan during Act 2 after the Selena thing, so maybe not. I think she would have done it regardless, because if it just took Selena telling her, I feel like Selena telling her didn't just get her from 0 to 10. Like she was already on like an 8.5 or 9. And then Selena telling her is what pushed her to the 10.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how Catwoman, I guess, holds on to this particular honorable quality at this point in time where desperate situations, as you're saying, like, so she doesn't want to break a promise, so she does a workaround of the promise. And you kind of think, like, maybe you just have to break a promise in this.
She's worked with the Joker, and she's like, I gotta be honorable. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
She's the thief. She's the thief. She's faked her own death, and she's like, I gotta be on. Although, in fairness, I'm saying all this. This is like Ed Brubaker, Catwoman, like protector of the East End. Like she's like legitimately like a much more positive person now.
Yeah. Is it realistic? So I'll ask this now, even though it was sort of bandied about. You had already mentioned it, that Batman hasn't connected that it is his plan. He does later in this act,
right?
But how is he like, oh, this is a really calculated plan, but he doesn't realize it's
I'm thinking, and the thing is, like, in the big picture of the entire city and everything happening, sometimes it's hard to see like a big picture, as opposed to like if this was like a small contained thing, like a single warehouse fire where something was happening. It's like you're looking very, very close. Like it's like you painting a picture. Until you see the whole picture, you won't recognize that that's your painting if you're just looking at like one tree and the overall like painting of like the park.
Yeah.
So I kind of believe it, especially with, the book is showing that everyone is just overworked and at their wits' end and completely like stressed out, and nobody's operating with their complete mental capacities.
I can see that. It's just, it's almost laughable or absurd because you're reading this and he's talking about himself, but doesn't know that he's talking about himself, and you're just like, oh my gosh, when are you gonna
whoever made this plan sounds like a really awesome person.
I know, yeah.
Or he's like, wow, whoever made this plan is like emotionally cut off and needs to like, he needs to be a better friend to his friends and stuff like that. It's like, oh, it looks like this was a plan made by a hypocrite, like, and a betrayer.
The big H word, yeah.
So the people that are listening to this in audio and not on YouTube, Stella just gymmed the camera. She, like, when I said like needs to be a less of a hypocrite to the friend, Stella like tilted her head and like cocked her eye. She gymmed the camera, which is like code for like she did a John Krasinski from The Office face. Like,
I had no idea, but yeah, I suppose I did.
Which there's a DC connection to that now because John Krasinski, I said Office Space, I meant The Office, but like John Krasinski, on The Office, co-starred with Jenna Fisher, and Jenna Fisher's first husband, James Gunn, is now president of DC Studios, or co-president with Peter
Jenna
Safran.
Fisher was married to James Gunn. That's interesting.
They were married in the early 2000s, and they're still like best friends.
I'm glad.
And not just like Hollywood, like we pretend to be best friends.
Sure.
Like they like legitimately like support each other's work and like hang out together at parties sometimes.
I'm glad to hear. I randomly found out that Katy Perry is very close with Orlando Bloom's first wife. I'm like, oh, this is great. I love that.
Oh,
yeah.
That's pleasant.
It is very pleasant, yeah.
Barbara and Catalina, you can make it work.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't want it to work. I don't want it to work. Any other?
but Barbara and Corey, they could be best friends. That's fine.
Was it Teen Titans?
Oh my God. I guess this has nothing to do with war games, but like if Barbara was best friends with one of Dick's exes, who would it be?
One of Dick's exes?
Yeah.
Clancy. Most reasonable.
Okay.
Don't you think?
I feel like maybe Helena, because like they actually work together.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's a cheat though, don't you think?
Yeah, that is a cheat. Yeah. Okay, no Birds of Prey. I really think that Barbara and Corey would find that they have a lot in common if they hung out more.
Okay. Whatever you say, man. Any other comments?
You say. Oh man.
Any other comments?
You don't think
looking
they have
for
a lot?
new co-host for Act 3.
Oh.
Looking for a new co-host. Okay. Any other comments on part 2?
No.
Okay. Part 3, clarification. I think there was a scarification in Act 1. Nightwing 97. Writer Devin Grayson, penciler Mike Lilly, inker Andy Owens, colorist Gregory Wright. Nightwing, whose guilty conscience about his part in the murder of Blockbuster still haunts him, patrols Gotham City right after the police curfew begins. He meets Batman, and together they go to Tarantula's turf to make sure that she has her gang under control. Batman leaves him alone, and Tarantula expresses her comfort working so close to Nightwing, making me sick. At that moment, a mysterious person attacks a member of the Lucky Hand Triad and tortures him for information. At the Hill, Orpheus is gathering his gang and trying to establish a plan of action during that curfew, and Onyx joins them after her escape from the Tompkins Clinic. There's a hug. Oh! Orpheus is glad to see her, and they set their plan in motion. This is tragic now that we know what happens. Oracle and Batman discuss Tarantula's presence in Gotham due to her reputation after killing a police officer, but Batman insists that she is helping the city, and he hangs up the line on Oracle, my gosh, making her more frustrated than she already is with the whole situation. At that moment, the mysterious man has captured and is torturing another crime boss for information. Robin and Nightwing crash the same nightclub at the same time. They start taking down the thugs inside, and while they do it, Robin wants Nightwing's opinion. Nightwing is paralyzed in fear, a PTSD attack, basically, knowing that he has no moral responsibility to give him advice. One of the thugs prepares a Molotov bomb and throws it at Robin, who saves some of the girls of the nightclub using his insulated cape. However, Nightwing starts seeing visions about the murder scene of Blockbuster, and he actually sees the body of Roland Desmond in the fire. Nightwing collapses and starts crying in the middle of the fire until Robin approaches him, gives him a rebreather, and they get out of the burning building. Robin is shocked after watching Nightwing in that state, and he tells Nightwing that all he wanted to know is if Batman was still mad at him for leaving the role of Robin, but instead he just leaves to make sure his father is safe. Nightwing softly mutters that Batman is not mad at him, but Robin has already left, so that doesn't really help. At the East End, at Holly and Karen's apartment, they listen to the news on the radio while they watch over Spoiler. However, when they need to open some bottles, they ask Spoiler to bring the bottle opener on the kitchen. Spoiler looks for it and finds a big box of kitchen matches, making her feel guilt and overwhelmed because of it, and she leaves the apartment, much to Holly's concern. I guess she's connecting the matches with Matches Malone. Meanwhile, at the Tompkins Clinic, Leslie Tompkins is looking at the Gotham City adoption database until she is interrupted by one of the nurses. I have no idea what that detail is about. The ventriloquist, I'll find out later. The ventriloquist and Scarface prepare the gang for an assault on Gotham, and by the time most of the thugs have left the place, he is attacked by the mysterious person who has been attacking other crime bosses. And after the coward henchman, Mr. Fun, runs away, that's a surprising thing to call him a coward. The mysterious attacker tells Scarface that he's now working for him. Nightwing goes to Chinatown and stops a gang battle before calling to Tarantula to make sure that she's doing fine. Tarantula has no worries, but Nightwing tells her to have her flashlight ready just before the lights on the entire city go off, following Batman's prediction. At the Iceberg Lounge, Penguin lights some candles and reveals that he is taking control over the electric power of Gotham City. Quote from Tarantula: "I can't wait to meet your ex." I don't know what sort of tone that she was using.
I read it as playful, but
I rolled my eyes at it. I was like, you did meet her. Do you remember creeping over her in, no, I guess it was Nightwing. She might have crossed over in Birds of Prey.
They broke up because
of her. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They've met. This is
I know. Some people don't do the research. How does seriously, if I gotta call 911, I won't be happy. How does Babs think Blockbuster's death? Okay, how does Barbara think that Blockbuster's death is suspicious, but Batman either doesn't or hasn't brought it up?
Well, I guess I can. I mean, do you want me to give you a spoiler for something that happens down the line that explains this question?
Is it in War Games?
No.
Oh, then sure, yeah.
This happens in Infinite Crisis.
Didn't we talk about that last time? That people knew, like Cass and Tim knew, and
Cass
Batman
and Tim
may have
knew.
known.
Okay, yeah. So like when Nightwing tells Batman, he's like, "Of course I knew." Blah, blah, blah. So like maybe Batman, I mean, which happens in like literally Infinite Crisis. Like, you know, like Nightwing's like, "Oh, I killed Blockbuster." Batman's like, "Yeah." So like I knew that. Well, so Batman probably finds it suspicious, but he's just not addressing. He's like, "Oh, Dick will tell me when it's time."
So it's just desperate situation. He needs all hands on deck, and so he's going to ignore this for the time being.
Or maybe not ignore it, but I haven't read the Nightwing issue where like they have the conversation about it in years. But I think that Batman basically says like, "I knew, and I was waiting for you to like be able to tell me or something." But like, Batman's also like kind of aggressively a jerk about it in that conversation. Like he's not comforting. Like he's like, "Yeah, stop feeling sorry for yourself. We gotta like fight Anti-Monitor and like Superboy Prime or whatever."
Oh, it's so long since I read that story.
But yeah, that whole conversation with Oracle, because Oracle is not wrong with the point she's making. It's like, yeah, this is a legit criminal. Like blah blah blah. I do think that her whole like Dick is protecting her because he's sleeping with her is like, wow, you do not have a high opinion of your ex-boyfriend at all.
Yeah, and the fact that she says, quote unquote, slept together, which I guess not many people, either the writing is not connecting or saying that it was an assault / rape, or it's like everyone thinks that it was.
It's
in universe.
It's the writing. It's just like the writing does not treat it as a sexual assault.
Yeah.
Even though like that's what it was. And as we covered that a lot last episode, like Devin Grayson apologized, but there is a disconnect and it hurts the story. It's also, when did everyone find out that Dick and Catalina were sleeping together?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess when he was gallivanting with her and he almost got married.
But how does Oracle know? Well, she's Oracle.
Yeah, I can only
guess. She knows. She's like, why is there a marriage license taken out for Dick Grayson?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Then she sees like Catalina Flores. She's like, hell no.
I do appreciate the fact that Dick has PTSD. I think that it's just an interesting development, and I think it makes sense for his character to see how much that particular thing, his inaction, has affected him. And per usual, PTSD just flares up at very inopportune moments, as it does here.
Yeah, and Tim kind of, I don't know, like, I don't blame Tim for this because he's a 14-year-old. Well, no, he's not 14 at this point. He's more like 16, or whatever. But like, Tim is a child, so like that's like too much for him to handle. Like when your like mentor, like big brother, parental figure is falling apart, like, and you're a child, like you don't know what to do. But man, this is not a time to leave Dick alone and have him in a War Games situation, maybe. Because if he freezes up, people can get hurt and everything. It's if you're a Nightwing reader during this period, it's really hard for you because you have years of Dick like desperately needing to deal with his issues and him not dealing with them, having the conversations that he needs to.
Yeah.
Like this blockbuster thing, like takes over the book through Infinite Crisis.
It is interesting. I find it very realistic though, where, you know, we each have our own problems, and say like something really bad happens to you, or you had a bad day and you want to talk to someone, and then you realize, well, they're having an even worse day, so I don't think I'm going to burden them even further with it. And that was what happened here, because Tim was worried. He wanted his advice, and he's like, well, Dick's got his own stuff to work through, so I'm going to just move on and leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got his own title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said before, too, this thing with Leslie Tompkins looking at adoption records, I was like, oh, whatever she's planning, which has been retconned that she didn't actually plan this, but whatever. Like, in the original intent of the story of what Leslie does, she had the plan for doing it at this point of the story, which is really weird.
Okay.
Barbara is not in War Crimes, but I hope that you read War Crimes anyway. It's
Because
a lot
Barbara.
short. It's a lot shorter than this. I feel like it was only like 4 or 5 parts, but I feel like you should read it
Parts
anyway.
or
Because
acts?
parts.
Okay. Okay.
Oh my God, no.
It's like I
Well,
can't
War
put that
Crime.
down. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot shorter than this.
Okay.
I think it would be like a small trade, from what I recall, but it adds a lot of context to like what happened in War Games, and it reveals like what Leslie was doing with those adoption records.
Okay. Yeah. It seemed. I mean, I didn't understand what was going on. Her coworker didn't. So I guess it's a Chekhov's gun, but we haven't gotten back to it yet.
Chekhov's gun being cocked, as Gerard Delator would say. Like,
Okay.
Would you have a theory?
No, I honestly don't know. I don't have anything. I assume it has something to do with Stephanie, but that's all I. Oh, actually, wait. Didn't Stephanie have a kid?
She did have a kid.
Oh God, this is gonna get really bad.
A lot of people forget that she had a kid, but like she had a kid.
Oh no, that's really bad. If Leslie's doing something like bait, then using Stephanie. Wait, if Leslie's using Stephanie's child as bait, I think not. That seems really bad. Okay, Tim. Yeah, Tim's a kid, right? He's worried that Batman's angry. Are you upset? I feel like
Nobody is talking, and it's affecting their War Games.
I know, but it's just like, isn't that so like high school? It's like, well, sometimes we forget that he is a child, but he also has the right to be upset. I would almost say the better right. So that's interesting that he should just give Batman a silent treatment. Do you feel like that scene in the massage room is necessary? I was really thrown off by got all this violence, and then all of a sudden we have half naked women running around in that scene.
It was framed very weirdly because like there was like a part where like everyone's like whoa, and I think like Tim's like whoa when he like sees like the boobies or something. It's like, and of course like there was a Gotham Chronicle callback because we actually had tassels on the tatas.
Oh,
that was one of Stella's Gotham Chronicle lines. She says
claim to fame.
Yeah, she said at least there was tassels on the tatas, and of course, Memories of LA as well. Are you looking up the page?
Yeah, I was going to see if I could find it.
Yeah, I feel like they did like a reaction shot of like Tim, like, whoa, like, and it's like, okay, I know he's a teenage boy, but like.
I know, there really are tests. Oh, yeah, because he's like looking right at the Tata. I mean.
Yeah, that was framed very, very strangely.
Yeah. It's just weird.
Yeah. A day after he saw his like, I don't know if I'd call Darla his girlfriend, but they were dating. Like a day after he saw his like, love interest like shot down, he's staring at tassels on tatas.
And it might just be art wise because Holly, man, you can't really see it, but Holly's like bent over and it's like trying to look down in the fridge. So I guess maybe it's just artistic.
We're recapturing the Jim Ballant day of Catwoman.
Yeah. Even though the synopsis said that Mr. Fun is a coward, I did find it interesting because I disagree with that. But it was just interesting that the mystery antagonist is someone that even Mr. Fun is afraid of, because Mr. Fun's a sociopath. So I didn't necessarily follow this blackout, and then I read the rest of the act, and then the lights come back on, and then I went back to this to write in this note that I just don't understand how Batman knows the blackout is going to happen, but he doesn't prevent it.
You could know something's happening without being able to prevent it.
And he knows he knows it because of this plan? Like it's something.
Yeah, like it's like listening to a song on the radio that you're vaguely familiar with. and you're like, oh, isn't the next line na 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 na? And then like you hear that, you're like, yeah, that's what I thought. Like,
Yeah.
except instead of a song, it's an assault on a city with a bunch of murders and blackouts and like death.
So you think at this moment he's starting to piece it together that it might be his
Yes.
plan? Okay.
Yeah, and I think he even says as much. He's like, huh, I knew that the blackout would happen before it happened. Like,
Okay.
and that's what's making him realize, like, he's seen the bigger picture, which is like, I wrote this.
But if he knew about the did that mean that in his original plan he would have caused the blackout? Or he just knew that inevitably someone would steal the power?
Yeah, he knew that inevitably that would happen.
Okay.
Like he knew the domino effect, which was weird because like I was gonna talk about this when he realizes it's his plan, because like the book is kind of vague about like what the plan would have, because didn't the plan go wrong? Isn't that the whole point of why Stephanie's upset?
Yes.
But here it's like, oh, this is all going according to the plan. But like I thought the plan was for like Matches Malone to be at the meeting.
Yeah.
And
I think it would have
the
still
bad
been
stuff
some
not
sort
to
of gang
happen.
war. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Like it's almost inconsistent because they're acting like it's all going according to plan, but then the whole point of Stephanie being upset is that the plan's going wrong. Because wouldn't Stephanie have seen, like, when she looked at the war games, like, oh, the city's like, she would have known that the city was going to be on fire. She would have known that all that was going to happen. So it's weird, and the book doesn't really explain it unless there was a backup plan within the plan that failed.
Yeah. And I guess like step by step, Orpheus would have had to go to each of the gangs and somehow take over. And he was accumulating people. I guess that was somehow the plan. But I don't know that everyone was going to shoot each other at the initial meeting. I think maybe, I don't know. It is inconsistent because if the meeting went according to plan, there would have been some sort of alliance made.
Yeah.
Then there would not have been a gang war and the power would not have gone out. So I guess this was like, if that doesn't happen and all the leaders get killed, then this will happen. Yeah, I don't know if he had.
I think it's a weakness in the overall storyline because, like, if maybe the writers had something in mind and they just didn't convey it well.
Yeah.
And that's actually caused some controversy at the time because, like, there's a line in one of these parts where Batman's like, I planned for everything and every death. And people were like, wait, Batman had a plan where people died? Batman purposely orchestrated something where, like, there was going to be murders, which is weird because of the whole, like, I won't kill thing, but I will engineer a plan that will kill someone.
Secondhand murderers don't murder. Yeah. Any other thoughts on part 3?
Nope.
Okay. Then moving on to part 4, The Light at the End of the Tunnel. This came out in Batman Gotham Knights 157. Writer A.J. Lieberman again, penciler Al Barrio Nuevo and Javier Pina, inker Francis Portela, and colorist Brad Anderson. After the blackout in Gotham City, Batman contacts Tarantula and tells her to deal with the man responsible for the blackout, Penguin. At that same moment, Spoiler runs across the rooftops of Gotham in order to reach Orpheus. Spoiler realized that if Batman and Matches Malone are the same person, the key to end the gang war is Orpheus. However, the way to her goal is full of dangers, and she is soon attacked by a mysterious group of men. She barely makes it, but keeps looking for Orpheus. Batman talks to Oracle, and he realizes that he has predicted mostly everything that would happen, and he understands that the reason for that is because, well, he planned it all. Good job finally figuring it out. Tarantula gets rid of the main security, and she's attacked by Killer Croc, Suicide King, and Trickster. They are no match for her, and she takes them down using some darts. Deadshot attacks Tarantula from behind, but she dodges Deadshot's attacks and disarms him. After a brief fight, Tarantula knocks Deadshot unconscious and takes his arm gun from him. Tarantula finds Penguin and tells him to get out of Gotham City once for all because everybody out there believes that he is the man behind the gang war. Penguin doesn't understand why they would think that, and Tarantula reveals that she has been spreading that word. Meanwhile, Batman contacts Alfred and asks him to check a specific file on the Bat computer and to send it to his mini computer. Batman reads the file and understands how he must proceed. However, Batman also asks Alfred for information about the last entry to that file, really the last person to look at that file. And Alfred tells him that it was Stephanie around the time when she was fired as Robin. Batman contacts the Bat family and he tells them that this gang war is a result of one of his contingency plans gone wrong. He He explains that the plan was supposed to get all the criminal gangs in Gotham under their control by making Orpheus the leader. Batman tells him that the only way to get the whole situation under control is to find Orpheus and keep him alive. Spoiler keeps going on his way to find Orpheus, and she is stalled by a street gang. Spoiler takes down the leader and tells the rest to take him to the East End Clinic. After that, she finally gets to the building where Orpheus was waiting for her. However, as soon as she tells Orpheus that he is a key member in the whole plan, a terrible, terrible thing happens. The mysterious attacker grabs him from behind and slits his throat open in front of Spoiler, after which the attacker questions the girl about the plan that she was talking about. Okay, so first of all, is it realistic that Batman trusts Tarantula so much and so quickly that he sends her, of all the people, to take out Penguin?
Huh. Because now I'm thinking, yeah, if Tarantula killed Blockbuster, she's not going to have any bones about killing Penguin.
Even though he says, no murder or whatever. But who's to say she's going to listen?
I mean, maybe he trusts her because Dick trusts her. And it's like, well, if she screws up, it's just a dead penguin.
Just a dead penguin.
Whack, whack.
Okay.
I figure that he thinks, if she's traveling with Nightwing and they're, having their fun, she's probably not doing murders right now, even if she did in the past. And then, how she's handling the situation with, that one gang and everything. Also, if they send Nightwing or Robin or something, it's not going to be as threatening. But I think that this could be a calculated move on Batman's part because Catalina is not a full-fledged member of the Bat family, so Penguin might be more afraid of her because he doesn't know if she'll follow their code or not. And I think Catalina's saying, "Oh yeah, I told everyone that you're responsible." I think that that's more scary to Penguin than Batman saying it.
Yeah,
because he's I don't know who this girl is, and she could kill me.
Yeah, she is willing to have more underhanded actions, I suppose.
Yeah,
Batman might. Yeah,
it's a calculated risk because she kills crime lords.
Yeah,
but Batman's if I have to risk Oswald's life, that is a risk I'm willing to take.
That's really bad to say. Okay, just from Batman, it sounds very bad character. Out of everybody, I would have sent Cass. I think she's the most reliable with the intimidation. Dick is clearly mentally unstable at this point in time, and I don't think he was going to send Tim either, because let's just say that Tim is fresh-faced at this moment, and he's got to get back his feet back under him. I feel like Cass would have been the person, but we're going with Tarantula.
Dick would have cried on the floor of the Iceberg Lounge, and Oswald would have been dude, I know that we're enemies, but do you want to talk about this?
Is Catalina this skilled of a fighter? Is that also
in 2004? She was.
Okay.
And again, this was something that I alluded to last month, which was that fans who were very, very resentful of her and who were using the term Mary Sue way too much for her. This was stuff oh, now she's beating Deadshot from the Suicide Squad. The writers are trying to shove Catalina down our throats. And when you see her as a new character taking down people like Deadshot, yeah, it is hard to swallow. But we do have a history of new male heroes also holding their own against established dangerous villains. So there's precedent. Yeah, it's surprising that Catalina's this good, but she has been fighting Nightwing and stuff like that, and living in Bloodhaven. So
how does Stephanie know where to find Orpheus? Did you wonder about this?
The same way that Black Mask knows to find Orpheus. It's really weird. How did they both happen to be showing up there? She had the waypoint on her map in the game, and I don't know. Maybe that was part of the war games or something like that, or maybe she used her intel from the street. Or maybe the war games predicted where Orpheus would be. Maybe she just looked all over the city until she could find him.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it was his hideout, but it's just interesting that she would know where that was because she's not really a part of the family at this point. So unless that detail was in there that he would be holed up there throughout the entire thing. Yeah, I was confused about that. Why are people going after her? Is it just because she's a mask out in the open? and it's chaos.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
I wasn't sure because they're like everyone's firing missiles and stuff. And then final before the really big comment that of course made me very upset. But it took Batman long enough to figure out that it was his own plan. We've already talked about that. But do you feel like the Bat family reactions to him revealing that it is his plan, or are they, would you say, spot on?
I'd be a lot more pissed off, but they might be too tired and stressed to be pissed off. It's like, ooh, I have a lot of emotions right now, but I am overworked and very tired. You promised me no more Tower of Babels.
Oh, I know, seriously. Robin says, "War game!" Exclamation. He's not looking happy. Dick says, "That's what you do during the day." Cass says, "But why?" Batman ignores all that and says, "Oracle, where's Orpheus?" She's having trouble tracking him down. See, that's why I'm confused how Stephanie can track him. So if she doesn't know, yeah, I don't know.
Well, Barbara hasn't seen the War Game. Stephanie has.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
If the War Game says where Orpheus would be, but if Batman's like, I predict that if the city is on fire in this neighborhood and there's a power out, Orpheus, judging by his like 7 recent, daily schedules, would probably go to this neighborhood where Black Mask will teleport.
Yeah. Robin asks, why even plan for something like this? You actually thought you'd have to take over the city. And Batman says it was a precaution planned to anticipate any number of variables that might disrupt the city. I never intended to implement it. And Dick says, well, if you didn't do this, you did. And Batman says that's not important now. Do you think that's an unimportant detail who implemented this?
I think he doesn't want to throw Stephanie under the bus because he already
that's shocking.
Feels, well, he even says, like, I may have treated her unfairly. So I think that there is a little bit of guilt there. So, like, maybe I shouldn't throw her under the bus. He'll blame it on Alfred later or something. He'll be like, I'm not being serious when I say that. Like, that's not something that actually happens. Like, oh, it was Alfred. He did it.
Well, I guess it's, I don't know.
Oof.
If I can
yeah.
But so the last page.
What a page.
So Stephanie approaches Orpheus, and then, you just see all of a sudden the knife and spray. So I could not believe it. I was very upset. But yes, yeah.
This is the guy that was going to take over Gotham's gangs and unite them. A guy that can get snuck up on like that. And now, okay, that's the writing's fault. That's not me criticizing Orpheus as a character, but just like for Orpheus to go out by getting stuck up on behind and slashed in the throat, as opposed to like a heroic death or something like that. And I tried not to completely spill the beans on this last month, but I kind of accidentally did. I was like, oh, maybe Orpheus will be fine. Yeah, this is like the Bat family doesn't really have a person of color in it, right now. And then they added Onyx and Orpheus, and like Onyx is kind of pushed to the side after this storyline, and Orpheus is like killed. This isn't a spoiler because you already know about Stephanie dying, but like his death is completely overshadowed by Stephanie's death. Like War Games is known as the story where Stephanie dies, and at the end of War Games, everyone's reaction is like, oh, Stephanie's dead. It's not like rest in peace Orpheus. So like he's taken out in a very disrespectful way in this title, and even then, like, we don't really get a chance to like grieve him. And then what happens next with him, which we'll get to with Black Mask, is like even more insulting. There's things about the storyline that and you even said that when you read Act 1, you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. You're getting now to Act 2 and Act 3, like the reasons why people are upset about the storyline. And it's like stuff like this. In the year 2023, we have Luke Fox, we have his brother, Jace, we have Duke Thomas, we have, people of color in the Bat family. They don't always get all the recognition that they deserve, but we're doing better with it than we were here, where we had a single person of color in the Bat family, and they were always kind of like an outsider of the Bat family, like because they weren't a Robin or a Nightwing, and they're just killed like this.
Yeah.
In a way where like they have no agency in their death.
Yeah, it's like a horror movie when there's a black character in the cast.
Yeah.
Like, inevitably that person's going to die. It's like, why can't we break that trope? I was very shocked that this happened. As I was reading, I probably gasped I really like Orpheus. I don't know that I read Orpheus Rising and had seen his body, and I always have picked out, I'm like, oh, look, it's Orpheus. Definitely wasn't utilized, I think, as much as he should have. So I was super happy that he was like getting this huge role in this story, and to have this happen was just really disheartening. And it's going to get way, way worse. Like, I mean, I would say racist. So it's not.
Yeah, that's fair.
We'll talk about that once we get to it. But yeah, definitely insulting to the character, and I'm very sad about it. I was definitely shipping Onyx and Orpheus, when she got back and they hugged, and he's like, I'm just, I'm happy that, and she's like, sure, sure. I'm like, oh, this is great. Maybe something positive will come out of it. And no. So thank you, DC Comics in 2004 for, who's the editor-in-chief here? Dan DiDio, for ripping my heart out and stamping on it.
DC had a reputation around this time because, like, I mean, we got the stuff coming up with Stephanie, and at the same
Bill
time,
Levitz?
we had
Who was it?
Paul Levitz.
Who is it? Who's the EIC?
The Dio.
Oh, it is the Dio. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's the Dio now.
Okay.
Yeah, but DC had a reputation at this time because, like, not only was this stuff happening in war games with like Stephanie and Orpheus, but you had Identity Crisis, which was their like mark your title, where like Sue Dibney's getting like raped and then killed while she's pregnant.
I think you are aware that I do like that story, but I recognize its problematic layers.
Yeah, no, it's a good story, but like there was a thing around this era of DC where like
Stuff, yeah.
women are getting raped and tortured, and black men are getting like it's. Do you think that the rape in Identity Crisis was excessive? I know this is a slight tangent.
Oh, yes, yeah. I think, yeah. Like, I mean, I always question any sort of rape in media and whether it was necessary or not. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on part 4? I mean, immediately in part 5, I've got questions that relate to part 4, but because we're not there yet.
Yeah. Let's get to part. Yeah. Okay. Let's get there. We covered my notes.
Okay. We're going to take a break since this is my little halfway point. It's like a cliffhanger anyway. See what happens. But when we come back, we will finish War Games and
who killed Orpheus.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, the reveal, which I have an issue with.
Was it Maggie?
What
was it? Maggie Simpson?
Oh gosh, yeah, I remember she killed the mayor, right?
Mr. Burns.
Oh, she shot Mr. Burns.
Yeah, she shot Mr. Burns.
But for whatever. But first, I don't care about those yellow people. That's just you and Donovan.
Cancel Stella.
They know I'm talking about The Simpsons. But first, Zaius' Radio Hour featuring "Calm Down" by All Time Low. See you soon. Okay, welcome back. So we'll just get into it. So part 5, The Only Light in Gotham. This is Robin 130. Writer Bill Willingham, penciler John Proctor. Isn't John Proctor the name of that character in The Crucible? The one who sweated like a stallion when he touched
I
it?
don't know. I've not seen The Crucible.
Inkers, Rodney. Did you say I haven't seen it?
I have not.
You mean you haven't read it?
Sure. I don't know.
But
I even said when I said I haven't seen it,
okay,
like,
I'm
what if
looking
it's
for
not
a
a
new
movie?
co-host for part 3 War Games. Someone that
And once they
reads
know that you don't care
literature.
about the yellow people, then like good luck finding them.
Okay, inkers Roddy Ramos and Robert Campanella, and colors Guy Major. Spoiler comes face to face with Black Mask, so there's the reveal, just after he murdered Orpheus in her presence. Black Mask wants to know about the plan that Spoiler was talking about and tries to snatch her purse. After a brief struggle, I'm going to call that a purse. It's like a satchel. But anyways, after a brief struggle, Black Mask manages to take it from her and starts looking for something valuable in it. She manages to grab a small detonator and activates it, causing the satchel and its contents to blow up in a small explosion. The same that reaches Black Mask's face, hurting him and causing him to lose balance and orientation. Explorer takes the opportunity and attacks Black Mask with all her energy and starts questioning him about his involvement in the gang war. Black Mask is seemingly unable to fight, but he surprises Explorer by attacking her with a sharp piece of glass and stabbing it in her or through her right shoulder. Explorer falls down and Black Mask beats her to a pulp. She tries to stand her ground and fight, but in the end, Black Mask grabs her from the neck and chokes her until she falls unconscious. Twice, I should say, after which Black Mask decides to keep her alive as she might still be useful for him. In the meantime, Robin has stopped some street thugs and taken all the weapons from them, giving them word of advice to leave the streets and stay home for the remaining of the gang war. On his way to deliver the illegal weapons, Robin contacts Oracle and asks her if there is any other place that might require him, but she tells him that things are quiet at the moment. Robin then asks Oracle to connect him with his father to tell him the truth about their current situation. Robin calls Jack and arranges a meeting on the rooftop of their home. Black Mask has taken Spoiler to his hideout, taken her mask off, and tied her with chains to a wall. He has also prepared a series of torture tools in order to get all the information he can from her. Elsewhere, when Jack goes to the rooftop, he discovers that Tim has returned to being Robin, but Tim explains that the current situation needs him and that if he returned, it was because of values that his father passed on to him. Jack finally agrees and tries to convince Tim to take him on a mission, but Tim has a better idea and gives Jack an address where they would meet later. Tim asks his father to take Dana with him as well. Stephanie recovers consciousness again after passing out several times already, and Black Mask tries to keep her awake this time so she can speak the truth he wants her to hear. However, after being punished beyond her limits, Stephanie resists and keeps a defiant attitude against him. Elsewhere, Jack, Drake, and Dana arrive at the East End Clinic where they meet with Tim, who is waiting for them in Civies. Tim takes them inside the clinic and introduces them to Leslie Tompkins, the head doctor of the clinic. Jack and Dana offer all the help they can on the dire situation the city is in right now, and Tim is forced to leave because of his other obligations. Some hours later, Black Mask has tortured Stephanie to the limit of human endurance, and she can't stand the pain any longer. Black Mask mocks her for being part of the Bat Group as she is weak and unworthy of it. He also makes hurtful remarks about her actual role in the vigilante group. Stephanie can't stand anymore and she gives up holding information from him. Black Mask then asks who the undercover man working for Batman on the games was, and Stephanie reveals that it was Orpheus and that the whole plan is destroyed now that he was murdered by Black Mask. However, Black Mask has something in mind that would make Orpheus still useful for him. Okay, well,
oh boy.
I know. So it's Black Mask, okay? Here's the reveal. But the reveal for me came off very anticlimactically. Was it better to reveal him at the beginning of this issue? Or should it have been at the end in a sort of would you believe the Kingpin way when he slit Orpheus's throat? Because here it just was like, well, he's suddenly on the page and it's not like dun dun dun. It's just something has happened between the
And
two.
he like says his name too, like just in case, like me. Black Mask.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And again, not in a would you believe Kingpin, which is a classic line. But yeah, I mean, what do you think about holding it off here and not at the end of the previous issue?
I would have done it as the cliffhanger, yeah.
Okay.
Like it would have built more anticipation and stuff like that.
Yeah, almost, instead of having, I guess, Stephanie's shocked face with the blood splurting, if Black Mask had come out of the shadows or something and revealed that it was him, I think that would have been
Mhm.
Interesting. So now we can talk about the Tim and Jack conversation on the roof. So thoughts on this conversation?
I was very surprised that as Tim's talking about his motivation for being Robin again, there was a key thing missing from the conversation. I'm going to see if you can guess what it is before I say it.
About what happened at school?
Yeah, he was in a school shooting, and the girl that he was dating died. Like, not really in his arms, but like he was like doing chest compressions. I am really surprised that that didn't come up because, like, if he's explained to his dad why he had to be Robin again, being like, I had a friend die in my arms. I was in a school shooting and I couldn't do anything. Like I said, there was a lot of not dealing with things in this crossover. Like, we're talking about Orpheus and how like his death is going to get overshadowed by Stephanie. But even like Tim not acknowledging the death of Darla, who is not his best friend, and like they weren't like about to elope or anything like that, but she was someone that like he was going out on dates with and hanging out with in school. Like that was a friend, that was someone in his life who died in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he's telling his dad, like, I think that that experience is part of what drove him to be Robin again. And I'm surprised he didn't. I think that that would have sold Jack too. Like, somebody died and I can stop more people from dying. I'm just surprised that the conversation didn't go there.
It reminds me of a conversation you and I had while inclining up a roller coaster, where you asked me, what if I died on this roller coaster? And I said, please don't. Like, that would be one of the worst things, probably the worst thing to happen in my life if one of my best friends that I love died in front of me. And you're like, but I hope you could be happy in the. Why are we talking about it? Yeah. Do you remember that conversation? I think it was Loch Ness that we were clicking
I know.
up.
Click, 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 click. What if I died here?
Like, you're nuts. Get away with that. No, that is, yeah, very interesting. I feel like he didn't need many reasons to explain why he was back. Like, he could just gestured and like, look at this city, and this is why I'm coming back. But you're absolutely correct that that's an egregious.
There's trauma that he's not. There's a lot of trauma that people are not dealing with in this. Like, man, the Bat family is a mess right now. Like,
Yeah.
who would have thought that like Selena, the hardened criminal, is like one of the most emotionally stable people in this entire crossover?
That's accurate. I had to think about that. Yeah, no.
Yeah, and I said that without thinking about it, but now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, Babs, Dick, Catalina, Tim, Bruce. Cass is doing okay, more or less, I'd say.
Except for her relationship with Babs, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, Catwoman or Onyx, maybe. Or Orpheus, maybe. But yeah.
Orpheus ain't doing so well now.
Yeah. I found it interesting when Jack was like, I'm coming with you. And I thought, that seems foolish, but I do like Tim saying, like, oh, I'm just have to worry about you. But brings them to some place, brings both Jack and Dana to a place where they can actually.
He's a dad who's worried about his son. I'd buy him wanting to do that. It is foolish, but like as a father, like I could see why he would want to do that.
And obviously, we do get into, I don't know. Now, obviously, you can kind of pull back the curtain at the time, but the whole Stephanie thing. Okay. So,
oh boy.
If they had plans to, because this seems to be his whole shtick, Black Mask, he's all about torture. It's been men up to this point, right? He leaves Kosovo, because I think that's her name, the Russian with the glass eye. He leaves her alone. But now we really we're pushing it. A lot of this stuff happens off screen, all of the tortures really, but it seems like we get closer to on screen with Steph. So I've got multiple questions here. So first of all, do you feel like, because I felt like Stephanie was really holding her own against Black Mask, and even leading up to her getting to Orpheus's hideout, we saw how competent she was against all the gangs, and at one point says, she mutters like, he should never have fired me, because yeah, she was really holding her own. She hold her own against Black Mask. Is this a way to give her a win before she's really losing? And then would you also consider this whole situation sexist and misogynist because of what goes down? Okay.
Easily, yes. You have a woman being chained up and tortured by a male villain, and she's at one point she's begging for him to stop. She's like begging for mercy. Can you see them doing this scene with Batman or Robin Can you imagine Tim like begging in this situation and crying the same way as like Black Mask is like, you're weak? Like, you're weak is like a thing that a villain would say in a monologue, but just it's very gratuitous. And you can't look at this scene in a vacuum. You have to look at the scene in the overall context of it being 2004 and Sue Dimney getting like raped by Dr. Light and murdered by Jean Loring over an identity crisis. And the fact that unfortunately DC is still very predominantly male back then, there is a lot of context to this. And the fact that this is being done to Stephanie and this entire storyline is very much a train of everyone poop on Stephanie. I would have said SHIT, but like, because the whole time it's like, you're not worthy, you're not worthy, you're not worthy. And let's chain her up to a wall and torture her with like power tools as she begs for it to stop and cries. It's a lot.
I would say even, I try not to compare traumatic events, but it seems even worse than Longbow Hunters too, because that's really the only other torturing scene that I can think of.
And I'm trying to remember how much there was. I'm trying to remember how much of this there was in Act 3, because like I'm like, is this all the Stephanie torture there was, or was there more? I was trying to remember, but the DC boards were very sexist and misogynistic back then, as we discussed with the Nightwing stuff. But even they were like, whoa, this is kind of twisted, guys. Like even this was making them go like, this is not really necessary.
So what is the alternative? What could have been done? Because if Black Mask is the villain that you've chosen, and this is his penchant, and he requires extracting information from Stephanie, what is the alternative to this then?
There's ways to write a torture scene that could have given Stephanie more dignity. We have like torture scenes in James Bond movies but it's like somewhat dignified for Bond. Yeah, tie Stephanie to the Goldfinger chair and like with the laser going up her, like, do you expect me to talk, Blast Mask? No, Miss Spoiler, I expect you to die. It's the way that the scene is framed. Don't have Stephanie crying. Don't have her begging for it to stop. Have her hold her own, like, while she's being tortured, like, to, like, prove her worth. Like, ask yourself the question, if this was Batman, if this was Green Arrow, if this was, like, Nightwing, how would this scene be written? And the answer is not like this.
Okay. It's very complicated. So I don't like the scene. So
I
don't want anyone to think
this is very nuanced. Yeah.
Yes. I don't want anyone to think that I like the scene at all. But I just I have some things. Well, first of all, I do think that's why I think that she fights well with Black Mask. They are trying to balance it. I'm not saying it's successful. She does have some snarky comments, like in the first half, I guess, of the torture, and then she's kind of done with it. Now, the only thing, I'm just thinking realistically here, that because you don't want her crying, and obviously I think the weak thing that's coming after her sex, I think, more so than somebody else's. So I do agree that there would be
and the weak thing isn't in a vacuum. The weak thing is after Batman said, "You're not worthy of being Robin."
Right. Yeah.
And we have like a whole War Games Act one of her being like, "I'm a failure. I'm not worthy."
Yeah, which Black Mask would not have known about. So that's almost like playing into. It's almost too much information that
right. But it's an extra thing for the readers. Like the readers have been fed a steady diet of like, Stephanie sucks, and we're going to like, toss her around the room like a rag doll.
Yeah. I feel like Tim would be similar in this situation because these kids, I'm just going to keep using that word, are not trained in resisting torture. I mean, there's only so much you can take. And I feel like anyone's going to say, like, please stop. I'd have to flip back to the previous two bosses, because that one guy was with his eyes being pried open. He's like, not my eyes, not my eyes. So I mean, people are gonna freak out. So that's like my only kind of disagree, because I just don't know. I don't know that you could put anyone in the situation and they're not going to react the same way. So that's why I wonder, what other situation could we have had that this is just not happening, period.
You could torture Stephanie, but like do it in like a way where like has more dignity.
Well, that's what you say, but I don't know. She just refuses to give up the information.
Yeah. And I mean, look at Princess Leia and Rey in Star Wars, and like when they got tortured.
Didn't Princess Leia give up the information?
No, no, she lied. And actually, Leia's example was not a good one because her torture was off screen. Like they have the little like robot need, whoa, 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 whoa,
Yeah.
and then like the door like closes.
Yeah.
And then like office, she's resistant to the mind probe.
And perhaps that's what should have happened. I mean, maybe that's the answer, is that it should have been off screen. He has the information and that's it.
Yeah.
But I feel like what you're asking is unrealistic.
Maybe.
And again, I just need to defend myself and say, I don't like this. I'm just, like what could have happened?
If I would have had like 8 hours to sit down, then I could have like shown you what could have happened instead or whatever.
That's fine. I mean, this was not a question that I had prepared to ask until we started having this conversation. So yeah. I don't blame you at all. I'm just saying like what could have happened. I think about that a lot in terms of rape scenes and sexual assault.
But it's also like, maybe you don't need to have a torture scene. Like there's other ways there's other ways to move the story along, like we're not without choices and options.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's always probably an alternative. Any other thoughts on part 5?
Nope, we covered it all. The Jack and Tim and the Stephanie torturing.
Okay.
I have a more funny note about the next part. I led to my notes, and it's just 2 words.
Okay.
And there's a story behind those 2 words.
Okay. Part 6, Collateral Damage, Batgirl number 56. Writer Dylan Horrocks, penciler Mike Huddleston, inker Jesse Delperdang, and colorist Jason Wright. The streets of Gotham City are a war zone. A lone woman walks through the fires and corpses as seen through a sniper's crosshairs. Batgirl swings in and saves this woman from getting shot, and angrily tells her that there's a curfew and she has to stay inside until morning. The woman insists that she got off work late and she needed to feed her cats. Batgirl takes down the sniper, who explains that he's freelancing for the Moxons. They told him to hold down the street. The Batgirl tells him that Moxon is dead, and the sniper says he doesn't care who's paying him. She asks if the sniper has seen Spoiler, and he says that he hasn't, and she sees 6 notches carved into the windowsill representing the sniper's kills, and she brutally knocks him out. Black Mask gloats over the body of Orpheus, whom he just murdered. He takes off Orpheus's helmet and finds a transmitter inside that will give him access to Batman. Hush shows up to talk to Black Mask. Black Mask says Hush had one chance to join him, and he threatens to kill Hush. But Hush tells him not to be stupid and explains that he has a proposal. Hush agrees to stay out of the power struggle if Black Mask will let Hush be the one to destroy Batman. And to show his good faith, Hush offers to give Black Mask the location of the Batcave, which, if you want to destroy Batman, I don't know why you would give that information away. Batgirl visits Tom.
You'll see, because there's a twist.
Oh boy. And actually,
yes, indeed.
Okay. Batgirl visits the Tompkins clinic to ask if Leslie Tompkins has seen Spoiler. Leslie tells Batgirl that she does not have time for this and angrily snaps at her for perpetuating the cycle of violence. Batgirl tells Leslie that this is not their fault and Batman didn't start this. I didn't start the fire. Lynx arrives with the ghost dragon.
He made the war games and they are real insane.
Yeah, to take over the clinic. They announce that it will be their exclusive field hospital and they threaten to harm Leslie when she refuses to cooperate. Batgirl battles the entire street gang single-handedly. Lynx tells her underlings to distract Batgirl while she enters, quote, the trance of the ghost dragon, end quote. They swarm Batgirl with katanas and begin to actually land blows on her. Lynx attacks Batgirl much more powerfully than she normally does. This fight takes him inside the clinic, and Lynx's henchman tries to stab Batgirl in the back with a sword, but Batgirl spins around at the last moment. The henchman accidentally chops Lynx in the back of the head, apparently killing her. Batgirl scares the other ghost dragons away with their leader down. Leslie is outraged and tells Batgirl to pass on a message to Batman. Leslie says that Batman has finally succeeded in turning her clinic into a morgue, and then shouts at Batgirl to get out. First and foremost, is Batgirl responsible for the death of Lynx since she saw the guy coming and switched positions?
So that's interesting. DC Wikia, that's their interpretation of what happened, because when I read it, I saw it as Cass had Lynx pinned. This guy came at them with the sword, and Lynx, not realizing that the guy was coming at the sword, she grabbed Cass and switched their positions so that it was Lynx basically trying to like get the dominant position, and she basically accidentally like Green Goblined herself. Like she put herself in the line with the sword. Like,
No, I understand. I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
open it up on your on your Kindle. Like, let's look at this.
Well, because it does seem like Cass sees the guy coming, so that's why
Well, yes, Cass sees the guy coming, but then Lynx switches their positions. I mean, I don't know what Cass's plan was, like to jump out of the way or whatever, but like Cass is not the person to like use a human shield.
No, which is why I found it shocking.
Yeah, which is maybe that was my brain like trying to rationalize what I was seeing, but yeah, okay, so look at Lynx. Yeah, look at the panel. Lynx is like making a sound, and like it looks like Lynx like rolls Cass over.
Yeah, I guess because Cass was distracted, and then Lynx takes the opportunity.
Yeah, like that's yeah. So I don't think Cass is responsible here at all.
Okay, okay. Donovan approves of your answer, I'm sure.
I would hope so. Like, oh,
He always
Cass
gets
would.
on me for being too hard on Cass this way.
Oh,
So Leslie,
dude.
has she finally reached her last straw? Is her blame well placed on the back?
Oh boy. Yeah, like reading this in the context of what I know is coming with Leslie, I'm like, oh yeah, they were seeding this. They were seeding this. This is Leslie Tompkins can annoy me sometimes as a character. Cause like I like her when she's like the nut when she's kind of like Bruce's mother figure, but she's Bruce's mother figure in the way that like she doesn't enable him like Alfred does or Jim Gordon. Like she loves Bruce and supports him, but she does not like the Batman stuff. But sometimes that's just like taken up to a degree. And there's issues in No Man's Land where like she really got on my nerves, where she's like, Batman, Mr. Zaz, the murderer is not the monster. You are, because you punched Mr. Zaz in the face for murdering people. And like Batman, like Killer Croc may like chop people into little bits, but you punched him, and like that makes you even worse. Leslie's kind of right in this case because, like, yeah, Batman did like make a war game. Which, by the way, now that Batman knows that Stephanie did it by looking at the files, like, there was no point in Selena telling Leslie. Leslie did not take that information to Batman. Leslie took that information to the adoption records. So,
does Leslie know that Batman was behind the war games, though?
Isn't that what Selena told Leslie? She's like,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I know that she said Stephanie was
like
responsible, but did she say that it was Batman's plan and Stephanie took it? I just can't remember.
I feel like she would have to in order to give the full like context for like how is Stephanie responsible? Because it would beg too many follow-up questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Leslie is just I mean, you mentioned No Man's Land. I was certainly thinking about that. Like she's just been pushed every bad event, it seems, and so now it's like she's gonna break and do something that's out of character, which I suppose she does. Is it reasonable then that what she does? Maybe I can't ask that yet.
No,
you still
no.
don't know.
Well, okay, so it depends on, is the retcon reasonable? Because they later retcon it because like it was just so horrible that they were like, never mind. The retcon's reasonable. The retcon feels like something Leslie would have done. The original, as it was written and as the writers and editors intended, was way out of character.
Okay.
And man, I mean, I don't know how you're going to cover this because like it's not a Barbara. Like, do you just do a special episode for War Crimes?
Yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a modern tale. I think for a little bit. I can't remember when Birds of Prey are coming out. I don't know if that's September or not. So I mean,
oh wow, is Barbara not going to have a monthly book for a little bit?
At the time, no, because I don't think
Birds
of Prey roster.
Wow,
that could be wrong. Yeah. And then my final question: why does Leslie? It felt like she hesitated in telling Batgirl that she hasn't seen Spoiler, because Batgirl asks, "Have you seen her?" And there's like a panel, like a beat, and she's like, "No, I don't have time for that."
I feel like that's her being like annoyed. Like, are you serious right now?
Yeah, like that's what they're asking.
Like I have people like bleeding everywhere. Like, and you're like asking where your little like girlfriend is. Like go away.
And it's always Kat. Like Kat is the one to look for in Act 1 too.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought Leslie was gonna yell at her to like read a book like Barbara did a few months ago. Like, like
read the scene around you. Yeah.
Hans Christian Andersen.
Oh yes, let's bring that back, shall we? What other thoughts do you have on?
I have two notes on this, or two words on my note thing for this issue. Lynx beheaded. So first of all, what do you know about Lynx, the character, before this?
I've seen her before. I don't remember where I have seen her. I don't know if it was
Okay.
Birds of Prey, but I've seen her before. Yeah.
So this is the death of a longtime character because she debuted in the first Robin miniseries by Chuck Dixon and Tom Lyle, like before Tim got his own ongoing series. Like when Tim was like going around the world to train, Lynx was one of like the students that trained with him at one of the dojos, but then like Tim went down his path and Lynx went down hers and became a criminal. And like at one point she was working with King Snake and she lost her eye because like she failed him, you know, like and didn't take down Robin. So she's kind of been like a dark mirror of the Tim for a little while, and she didn't fight Tim that often, but like she was just kind of a reoccurring, like, you know, teenage girl villain in the Bat titles, martial artist. So this is a big deal, her dying. So the next time we see Lynx after this is after Infinite Crisis at the beginning of 1 year later. Tim, I'm trying to remember exactly. It's been years since I read the issue, but if I recall, the issue is like Tim is somewhere. He like wakes up with Lynx's like dead body, freshly dead body in front of him, and he's like, "Oh my God, Lynx is dead, and I'm being framed for her murder." So, do you have any follow-up questions to that before I keep going?
I guess I'm confused how she's dead here. If she
Yes.
then is dead again.
That is a very good question. So DC killed Lynx twice within 2 years and forgot. This created a mess because fans were like, I thought Lynx was already dead. So this was part of, it's funny you say, is Cass responsible for Lynx's death? I should have said, well, which time? Because,
I wouldn't have gotten it. So.
Because Cass was kind of responsible for her death the second time because that was during the Cass as an evil supervillain era. I don't remember if Cass directly killed Lynx or just had like the League of Assassins do it, but like Lynx dies and it's like part of Cass's plan to like turn Tim evil, which they later retcon. Oh, actually, Deathstroke put Cass under an evil like serum, and that's why she did that. So there's the Batgirl miniseries around 2008, right before Batman RIP, that ties up all of the continuity about the Cass being evil arc to kind of like bring it home. And there is a long page of exposition. It's like just a super long page of like big speech balloons. And one of the things that they had to tie up was how did Lynx die in War Games, and then like just show up as a dead body, freshly dead body here. And someone like Nightwing says, you know, after Lynx died in War Games, you know, the League of Assassins underwent a mystical ceremony to bring her back to life so they can kill her again for like this plan. So I'm just imagining being Lynx. You're like fighting Sandra Kane, then all of a sudden your head's chopped off, and then you wake up and you're in front of the League of Assassins and they brought you back to life, and you're like, hooray! And then they just immediately kill you again. Immediately, like a second.
Pretty convoluted plan.
I don't even know why they needed Lynx for that. It's like just get it. I mean, I know why, because they had to explain the continuity error, but like it's a very, very stupid line. She had the League's mystic restore Lynx, dead since the gang war, then killed her again, put her in a Batgirl costume, and framed me for her murder.
I think you skipped the part about the Batgirl costume.
I forgot about the Batgirl costume.
So Tim wakes up and thinks Cass is dead?
I mean, I think he takes off the mask and he sees that it's Lynx.
Oh. And this is in the main Infinite Crisis story? Or this is a tie-in?
This was in 1 year later after Infinite Crisis. Do you remember like 1 year later after like during Infinite Crisis? Yeah, so this is going to happen in the Robin title. Well, okay, the Lynx murder part 2 happens in the Robin title, and then we have a Batgirl miniseries in 2008 that like ties it all up. So so to answer your question, is Cass responsible for Lynx's death?
I guess no.
Not this time, but the second time, yes.
Interesting. So now Donovan will be both overjoyed and upset with you.
So that was my note. Lynx beheaded. And I'm like, oh man, yeah. I remember all of this.
Right.
And I remember all this controversy.
DC should have a continuity expert.
They kind of do.
Well, I think they're better now than they were, but
yeah. They're kind of two people, but like DC's just such a big company with a lot of like departments.
Any other thoughts on part 6?
Nope.
Okay. Part
Don't
7,
lose your head.
Betrayal.
Oh, written by Donovan Grant.
Indeed. Catwoman 35. Writer Ed Brubaker. Penciler Paul Gulacy. Inker Jimmy Palmiotti. And colorist Lori Cronenberg. Stephanie Brown recovers consciousness once again and finds herself bloody, beaten, and wasted at Black Mask's secret hideout. She manages to free herself from the handcuffs on her left wrist, but she passes out due to the pain caused by trying to free her right hand. Catwoman patrols the east side of Gotham and stops random acts of violence and crimes in progress. Her wrist communicator rings and she answers, thinking that Harley might have a lead on Spoiler's location. However, from the other side of the line is Oracle, who answers and tells Catwoman about an attack on the east side. In order to get Catwoman to go, Oracle suggests that Batman doesn't want Catwoman to be a part of it, giving Selina all the motivation to go and stop the attack, which I thought was very dumb, but we'll talk about it. Oracle tells the news to Batman, and he sets the next step of his plan in motion by taking over the airwaves of the entire city, including internet networks, radio frequencies, and even Oracle's main system. Hashtag Batjerk rides again. Batman speaks and addresses the Gotham City Police Department, giving every officer available on the streets instructions on how to proceed. The great majority of the GCPD follow Batman's instructions, while people like Commissioner Akins, James Gordon, and Oracle don't approve of Batman's actions. Catwoman arrives at the place of the attacks on the East End and confronts Vicious and Pistolera. Catwoman tells the police officers that are trying to deal with them to follow Batman's instructions while she stays and deals with the Ravens. Remember them? Neither Vicious nor Pistolera are a match for Catwoman, and they are easily defeated. Pistolera takes a chance and shoots an oil truck, causing a big explosion that destroys the nearby buildings. Catwoman is distracted and she tries to contact Oracle while the Ravens escape. Oracle recovers her system and sends some fire engines to the area. Meanwhile, Stephanie recovers again and manages to get on her feet after freeing herself from Black Mask's torture chamber. Stephanie knows that she must warn Batman about Black Mask and the murder of Orpheus, but instead she decides to go to the East Side Clinic and tell it all to Leslie Tompkins, who would later get the word to Batman, or so she hopes. Oracle contacts Batman and tries to make him reveal his actual plans to her, but Batman just closes the communications with her. What's going on? Batman drives the Batmobile towards the hill and talks to Orpheus's intercom, telling him that he's going towards him to set the next plan in motion. However, since Orpheus is dead, the whole information is being listened to by Black Mask, who thinks about posing as Orpheus on Batman's plan. Okay, first question, why does Batman feel the need to manipulate Catwoman to protect her own territory? It seems like she's plenty motivated already to protect her territory.
Yeah, that was stupid. Oh, she fights better when she's mad at me. Like, it shows that you don't have faith in her, that, like, you don't think that, like, she's going to fight for her own territory. You think she cares more about you than her own, like, territory and the people. Because within the Ed Brubaker Catwoman run, that was her neighborhood. That was, like, she was very protective over this place and the people and, like, was kind of becoming her own hero. I think Batman just, it's his ego. And, like, he doesn't want to, like, and he doesn't like asking for help, so this is his way of asking for help without, like, asking for help.
Yeah, I was sort of squinting at it. I mean, the fact that he trusts Tarantula to be more competent than Catwoman, I just feel like, what's going on here? It was just like, let's leave the drama and just ask what you need to get her, for her to get done, and then have it out there. We don't have time for this stuff. Yeah. Why does an Oracle question what Catwoman knows about Steph, given the way Catwoman first answers the call? Because if someone picked up and said, did you find Spoiler or whatever, and then I would be like, what about Spoiler? Why doesn't Oracle question that?
I guess it's a blind spot.
Okay.
Like, because Oracle is very, very tired and overworked and, like, throwing darts at her Catalina dartboard, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah. So this is called Betrayal, which we all, I do love that word. And
Betrayal.
And yeah, that is the betrayal. Do you think, what is it? Do you think it's when Batman hijacks Oracle's system, or is there something else going on? What would you say is the betrayal in this issue?
Let me see. Probably.
Let me count the ways.
Yeah, I was like, the fact that this issue existed, but actually, I don't have a problem with, like,
this issue. He betrays me not. Yeah.
Yeah. The hijacking, probably. That was a very, I mean, and at least the issue frames it as, like, Batman is called out on the issue. The comic doesn't portray it as, like, isn't Batman right for doing this? Like, people are mad at him and upset with him, rightfully so. And when he does it, it's at the expense of, like, Barbara was not able to communicate with Selina during the mission during this. She's like, oh, sorry, I was offline. It's like,
yeah, people are.
It's imperative for Oracle. Like, what if Oracle had something important to tell Selina that could have helped her or saved her life. Like, Batman doing this is very dangerous. And this, again, it's interesting going back and reading this in the context of knowing what's going to happen, because there is a big change in Barbara and Bruce's relationship at the end of this storyline. They have a new status quo going for forward after this.
Okay, well, I was gonna, so I don't want to know what is.
No, and you'll get to it, but like, I see how they're building to it here, and I'm like, oh, this makes sense because of what they did with Barbara after the storyline.
So I did wonder, if you were Barbara, would you call it quits with Batman after this whole thing is over?
I would seriously reevaluate it. I would be severely tempted to, yes.
Yeah.
Because you are like hindering, like, you cannot be in control of what I am doing. And it's at the expense of my agent's life. What if Huntress and Black Canary needed to get in touch with her for something? This is not okay.
I fully agree. Obviously, people know that I'm not objective in this matter, but I think that it was really bad when
I don't know if I would 100% call it quits, but there would be like hey, we are about to have a divorce if we don't work on this right now, because I am on the verge of divorce.
Yeah, they need to sit down for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was really upset I think this is just an example of bat entitlement. Like, I'm going to do whatever I feel is necessary, and I'm going to take over this particular system. And it's not the first time that he's done that, but I think each time it's like a very intimate invasion, because this is her now. And she has her fingers in across the DC universe. So it's not just like she's working with Gotham right now. Like, there are definitely probably other calls that she's helping with too. So it's just really short-sighted of him. For just a short there's Ravens, you've got Catwoman and Barbara as Oracle. So it's definitely like a little mini Birds of Prey reunion, kind of like a mini Birds of Prey issue. And just a question, I don't want to be spoiled, but Robinson Park comes up. Is Catwoman still in is Poison Ivy still in Robinson Park at this point in time?
I don't remember her being in Robinson Park at this point in time. That was a No Man's Land thing.
Okay. Well, I wondered if she was.
I know that she's gone back there before. Like, I think there was it Joker War or something, or like one of those James Tynion arcs where I think she was like underground in Robinson Park in the last few years.
Yeah.
I don't think Poison Ivy shows up in this.
Okay, yeah, because he says like we need to keep pushing all these people over there, and I thought, oh, maybe Poison Ivy's going to convince her to work with him. I guess that's too interesting of a story for them to tell. Any other comments?
I mean, keep her away from this. All this misogyny going around. Like, who knows what they'll do to Poison Ivy? They'll like probably cut her foot off and feed it to her.
Any other comments on part 7?
No.
Okay. Then the finale is part 8, Orpheus in the Underworld, and we're going to have it out just like we did in part 5.
Oh boy.
Batman 6.
This is a thick one.
Oh, and I do wonder, with some of these things that are going down, never mind.
Oh.
I changed my mind about what I was going to say, because I wondered if they were kind of keeping some of the heavier stuff for titles that weren't Robin and Batgirl, but the torture scene happens in Robin, so I did with myself. But I feel like with Batgirl
and a beheading scene in Batgirl.
Yeah, so
but it's okay. The League of Assassins sewed her head back on.
Yeah, and she wears a little choker to hide the scar. Writer Bill Willingham, penciler Kin Sun Lo, inker Aaron Soud, colors Tony Avina. This is a short synopsis. Black Mask disguises himself as Orpheus. Boy, is that a way to say that. And as such is forced to battle Zeiss, who was sent to kill Orpheus and other prime bosses by grief-stricken Henry Akista. When Batman arrives on the scene, he gets the better of Zeiss, but is distracted by a large explosive planted by the assassin, which he must defuse. As he does, Black Mask, the faux Orpheus at this point, deliberately allows Zeiss to escape because he could use him. Through Onyx, he arranges, i.e. Black Mask, arranges for the transportation of a large machine for dispersing gases, though she doesn't know what it's about, and then listens in as Batman gives his allies and police their orders for a final showdown with the gangs in Robinson Park. And I will say that Onyx gets browbeaten by Batman because she returns and he's like, don't leave Orpheus again. Okay, so this says that Black Mask disguises himself as Orpheus. So let me speak plainly. Black Mask
Yeah.
cuts off Orpheus's face and attaches it to his skull. Okay.
Wasn't some of that prosthetics though? Like he cut off the face because
Well, he
that
does have to, yeah, he does have to use some mold to make it work. But I mean, the base of it is true. So I'm already upset that Orpheus is dead, and then I'm watching this happen. I'm reading this, and I am absolutely horrified because, and I texted Donovan. I was like, Donovan, I have a serious and weird racism question for you because this literally feels like blackface.
yeah.
And then, yeah, you got this white man like doing this, and I just feel like it's really, really
And
bad. So we've
it's easy
not
to
only had the
forget that Black
torture.
Mask is white because he wears the
Yes,
mask, but
yeah,
he's a white man.
he is a
Yeah.
white man. Yeah. So we not only had this torture, which I was like prepared for, not to say that it like lessened the impact, but this one I was like not prepared for. I don't think anyone has ever told, like I said, I was shocked that Orpheus dead, but this was like, I can't believe that they put this on page. So thoughts, your personal thoughts, and then what went down online? Like what were people's reactions? Were they picking up that this was like really racist, that this was happening?
They weren't picking up that this was racist, but like there was a lot of how does Batman not know that this is black that this is black man? Like
Yeah.
because if Nightwing died and like Joker dressed up as Nightwing, Batman would recognize that this wasn't Nightwing. If it was Alfred, he would recognize that it wasn't Alfred. Now, that's not a fair comparison entirely because Alfred and Nightwing are two of his closest allies that he's like been had this intimate relationship with for years, an intimate partnership. Orpheus is more new, he doesn't know him as well, but even still, this kind of speaks to the racism of it in that, like, you know, you have the one black character in the Bat family. Not only does he die in a way that doesn't have agency, but the villain disguises himself as Batman. And to add more disrespect, Batman doesn't know this person well enough to even recognize that this is not his friend and ally. This is a villain.
Can I use your own words against you and ask, is it the same
Do it.
thing when I asked you why Batman doesn't realize it's his own plan and use the metaphor of or the simile of a painting and stepping back? Is he just so distracted by other parts that would have no thought that Orpheus would be? So he's just not looking at it.
I mean, it's a fair question, but I think in this case, you know, like he's looking at the whole painting because the painting is Orpheus's body. He's seen somebody that should not be moving like Orpheus, might not have the same vocabulary and vocal inflections that Orpheus has. Like, is Black Mask like a vocal mimic now? Like, what are we doing here? Like, there's that, and it's also you have to look at it in the context of like the disrespect to the character, and this is very disrespectful to the character, and that's before we get into the racism because this is racist on like many levels.
Yeah, I would say flaming. But people at the time didn't realize this.
I don't remember them focusing on the racism, but I don't think that like this is going to sound very social justice of me, but like I don't think in 2004 we were quite as PC as a society to like, you know, recognize that in ourselves. In fact, like kind of that era, we were in a very, very like offensive thing of comedy where like we just like embrace political incorrectness. There were shows like Drawn Together and like a million different South Park clones where like the idea was let's be as offensive as possible, like Team America, World Police, and stuff like that. We embraced a lot of racism openly.
Forgot about that movie. I've never seen it, but I know enough about it. Yeah.
We should watch it together. I think you would laugh, but like it has not aged well in some places. But like
I know that two puppets have sex.
Yeah, I was about to say there's a puppet sex scene that like that's why I said we should watch it together because I think that I would love to watch you watch the puppet sex because I feel like you laugh.
Sure, yeah.
Only a woman.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah,
you know, avenue to you, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. You like step back and you wonder like, what were the writers thinking? Was the end like no one had any problem? But were there any people of color on staff at DC Comics at this point in time?
Maybe.
Because the original editor of Birds of Prey, is he still working at this point in time?
I'm not the best person to ask about that timeline. Like, I'll
Okay.
talk about continuity, but like editorial,
That's
it's
fine.
like
That's fine. Yeah.
who the and some of these names I know, like this editor. Like, I don't know if they're black or white. They're just names in a thing for me.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, very interesting. So let's just say I was very upset. Can't believe it. If Cass were there, I feel like she would pick up on it since she does know movements of people.
Yeah.
She would immediately.
And again, like Black Mask, he's not like Ra's al Ghul, someone that's been like trained in like all these arts or whatever. Like,
yeah,
he can really mimic someone's like body language and their vocabulary and their vocal inflections, like enough to fool Batman.
And what are the chances that they're the exact same height?
This feels like a plan that would not. Well, he said like that he modified things, like he did like body padding. This is a lot, and he's doing it as like the corpse of the hero is still there, and he's like carrying it around. It's really sick.
It is, yeah. It's one of those situations. I guess you have to suspend your disbelief for the comics in order to keep it going. But yeah, I didn't know it was going to get this bad in this particular story.
And I feel like there's more bad stuff coming in Act 3 if it's as I'm remembering it. Yeah, this is
cool.
Cool. It's a rough war game.
Should have stopped after Act 1. I was like, you know what, this isn't so bad. It's fine. There's some problems, but okay.
Here
we go.
Yeah, racism and misogyny.
Yeah. Well, Black Mask, it's interesting that he prepares this particular trap, but doesn't clean up the scene from Spoiler's presence. That he's shocked that Batman finds some evidence that Spoiler was there. But because it seems like Black Mask is highly intelligent given all of this stuff that's been going down, and he knows where to find Orpheus and all of that, but he doesn't know everything, I guess. He's not Batman. But then that goes to the point of like, how doesn't Batman notice? He notices this ripped shred of Spoiler cape, but he doesn't notice that Black Mask is actually
that one of his enemies is right in front of him.
Yeah, for sure. I did tragic, but I did like that Batman is optimistic about Stephanie being alive. I thought that was, a good thing.
It was so callous when Orpheus said, "Oh, her corpse has probably been like dumped somewhere."
Yeah. I am still confused about the power. Did it get turned back on because of Tarantula? Is that what we're supposed to assume? Penguin's gone, so okay. So
I guess.
Okay.
I knew that the power would come back on. That was in my board.
I guess Tarantula did her job then. Any other thoughts on this finale?
Nope. Just the Orpheus stuff. Like, wow.
Yeah. So, I don't even know how to rate this. So I guess, how would you rate Act 2? And we have to, this is hard because we're not only looking at storytelling, but we also have to, I think, consider the problematic elements as well. But do you want to separate and say like storytelling wise, but because of these problematic elements, I'm going to give it a final . Is that what you want to do?
I forgot. Do we do out of 5 or out of 10?
Out of 10.
I'm gonna say 3 out of 10
for storytelling.
Yeah, because you can't divorce the storytelling from the problematic elements.
Okay.
It's like you can't divorce it. You have to look at it in the context. Like, there is some good stuff, like the Atkins and Gordon conversation. That was really good. There's good art, but like the Stephanie torture, the Orpheus, and what would the black version of women in refrigerators be? Like, the Orpheus women in refrigerators and the blackface, and those are just way too much for me to give this anything higher than the 3. Like, there are some enjoyable things through all of this, but it's hard to like have that make up for the severe pitfalls.
Might just raise you like a 4. I might raise you a 4.
Okay.
I was thinking of 5 before you started talking. I'm like, wow, you really got to pull it down. So I'll say a 4 because of some of those good conversations that were had, but some of the conversations that should have been had and weren't had. Like I said, I really loved that art on that one issue. I really highly recommend looking at that.
The art's been good in this.
Yeah. So 4 out of 10 Onyx and Orpheus ships is what we'll say.
The ship has sunk.
I know, but I can hold on. I can hold out hope.
People were really upset because Black Mask like had sex with Oswald dressed up as like. No, I'm just
Ew,
kidding. I'm
please,
kidding. I'm kidding.
please.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay, that's fair. I'm sorry.
And you did that because of Spider-Man, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I just thought I was like
situation and his whatever Michelle.
No, I didn't even have that thought. I was just thinking like, oh, like because you said I said and their ship has sunk, and I was thinking like, oh, let me build off of that thought by like lying about something that doesn't.
Really be, no. I was like, I can't handle having a discussion about rape now after all of this. Oh my gosh. Okay. How to even cleanse a palate. Well, I do have, let's do some listener emails.
Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
So there's only one comment on YouTube. Actually, I'm glad you're on here for this because it's my own comment, just so I could remember. So first of all, I will say this doesn't involve you, but Grunkle Keith in his story did say that he had to explain to me what a urinal cake was, and I didn't know what it was, and that is false. I had known what urinal cakes were. When he went to the bathroom, I asked him if there were urinal cakes in there once he got back, and that's when he explained. I've known about them for a while. I've seen my fair share of urinals. I won't say why. So I just want to defend my honor and my character by saying I know what urinal cakes are, or trough lollies. But the other thing was, so Donovan, our naked friend,
Is this public knowledge now that he's naked?
Well, I promoted his Instagram on this show.
Okay.
Because he wants more listeners. I'm sorry. He wants more followers than gay men, ex-girlfriends, me and Harry. I guess apparently you haven't asked to follow.
It's a boundary issue. And I don't use Instagram that much. It's like, I should tell the podcast the story of, like, this, but I'll tell the podcast the story of how I found out about this page. I get a message from John Wilson saying, "Why is Donovan naked?" And it's just out of context. And I'm like, I looked at it and I'm like, I need more information than this. And there's multiple Donovan in my life. So I was like, even like going through them.
Yeah.
I'm like going through them mentally. And I'm like, I don't think he's talking about any of the others. And I'm like, and I don't even know why he would. And I was finally like, what? And then he like sent me a link and I was like, and Donovan and I talk a lot about things. So I'm like, I didn't know this existed. This is interesting. And when I told Donovan, he was just so amused that like the message I got was, "Why is Donovan naked?" He was like, "What an out of context message."
And what happens to me now is every time I pull up, well, not every time, but frequently when I pull up Instagram, like his naked picture will pop up. That'll be the first thing I'll see. He does like artsy things where there's like lots of chiaroscuro and like shadows and things, but at one point it popped up and it's in his bedroom. It's midday, so like the sun is shining through and he's like standing up but spread eagle. And like, I mean, everything, his peach, his coconut is there. And so I usually immediately text Harry and I say, "Harry, turn on Instagram." And then
like it's a TV, turn on Instagram.
How else do you say? Open it up. Open up Instagram. And then Harry is like, "Geez." And then we chat about it. But anyways, our naked friend. He really liked our previous episode with you on it. He also responded. So in the second half, you weren't on just because of time constraints for me. And in the Dick Grayson POV, Nightwing, have you read that?
I've not.
Okay, that's fine. But I commented how his back looks like a war zone. And I was very confused. It was like his back looks like what Batman's back would look like. And said that it is as bad as Batman's back. Would you agree with that? And then is that shocking to you? Because he's younger. I would feel like his back should not be as filled with scars as much as Batman, who's been in the game for longer. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, but like Batman only has like, I mean, if we accept the fact that Dick Grayson became Robin during year 3, And that means that like Batman only has 2 years on Dick. And then even then, like Batman's taking his breaks because he was with Julie Madison during that Scott Snyder arc where like oh my son was cop was Batman. Oh yeah, Stella just made a heart sign.
Yeah, I do love that ship. I was
Bruce
sad
and
when that
Julie.
ended. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it because she was his fiance in the Golden Age. I'm like, it always makes me wonder, what if DC never broke them up? Like, would Julie have just been Batman's fiance the way that like Lois was always Superman's? But anyway, and then like Bruce took the break when his back got broken. Obviously, Dick's had his breaks too, but their time apart is not that like different. So
Okay.
I could buy it. And also like Dick was with the Titans and like fighting like people like Trigon and Deathstroke. So
Should every like if I saw well, we've seen her naked back, but if I see Barbara's naked back, primarily we're going to see the scar from the exit wound from Joker's bullet. But should it realistically also be similar scarring as badly? Should everyone have that?
I mean, I guess I would have to talk to like a dermatologist about like is people's skin different and like it depends on how well they fight and how often their backs are wounded or like can a back get progressively worse or is there like a wall that gets hit or something? I don't know.
Interesting. Just the war wounds. I guess I also feel like with Dick, he does more acrobatics than Batman does, so I feel like he would dodge more so than bulldoze.
But he was a child for a lot of the time, which actually makes it sound worse. But so like maybe he was like not as good at dodging things when he was a child. He had the cape.
I guess Tom Taylor also referenced a gunshot wound that he got, and there was like a reference photo. I can't remember if it was Joker.
He was shot in the head during Tom King.
Gosh. Oh yeah. Well, he was shot when he was a police officer, but also I guess when he earlier, I think it was Joker. I can't remember. Donovan sent me.
Oh man, there's been a few gunshot wounds because the Joker shot him in the shoulder.
Yeah, that's the wound. Yeah,
and
you can see that scar.
The Joker. Yeah, like he didn't aim for Barbara's shoulder, but like he aimed for Dick's shoulder.
And then my only listener email comes from former BFF Sheena regarding my previous episode because 235 was my interview with Karen Whitfield, which I have a job for you to do at San Diego Comic-Con. So let's see. She says, BFF Stella, my questions for Batgirls number 19 are as follows. Where was Grace hiding that shotgun? Why did Gun Bunny care about the protests? And what was the point of the deep fake, the video there? Overall, it is sad to see this book come to an end, even though I feel like I have been highly critical of it. I really tried to focus more on all the good things as the book went on. It was fun to follow month to month and always seemed to be getting stronger and stronger with each arc. At the end, I can't help but thinking what might happen to Steph. We know Cass is going to be part of the new Birds of Prey lineup, and Babs will probably continue to guest star in Nightwing. But do we know where Steph might go after this? I'd really hate for her to disappear. I hope you can interview Clinton and Conrad. I'd love to hear more of their insights and experiences working on this book. Yeah, there are some things I have yet to share. I'll have to share with you off there. I had some insider information. Do you have any thoughts on that? Did you read 19?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm behind on everything.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So where was Grace hiding that shotgun? Down her pants. No, I don't know. It's a good question. I honestly don't know. Why did Gun Bunny care about that protest? I think that was a similar question because she's a gun for hire. I wasn't really sure. I did not believe her motivations that she would care about that particular city and the back rolls and all of that. So that was very weird. So I don't know. And then what was the point of the deep fake? I thought the point was in order to make it seem like the back rows were locked up so that they could be undercover and work the scene without being seen. So hopefully that answers it. But yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll cover Birds of Prey and see what happens. And then Barbara, Nightwing somewhat in Teen Titans. And as Josh said, she's not going to really have a book. So I wonder what's going to happen. But Steph, I feel like wherever Cass goes, Steph kind of follows. So maybe she'll still appear in like Detective Comics and Batman and things, but not having her own book, we can't say about her characterization. But apparently her characterization is much better in other books rather than in that.
Maybe put her in a team book or something.
Yeah. Okay. The final thing is just literature recommendations. Are you reading anything? I know you do a lot of audiobooks when you have the time.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of time lately because of how chaotic the last month has been with that tragedy that I mentioned. I'm just thinking of comics that I've read recently, you know, because I do still have to read comics every week for work. I think I mentioned on this podcast before that like I have to read every single Marvel book, which is a lot. But you know, there's some fun stuff in there. And I said I was liking Red Goblin. But no, nothing that's coming to mind right now.
Okay.
I'm kind of having a brain fart, so like I might think of something 9 hours from now and be like, why didn't I say this issue by this person?
I heard that, or I just saw a news item that says the young lady who plays Miss Marvel is going to be writing a book.
Yeah, Miss Marvel book where Miss Marvel comes back as a mutant, which is.
But isn't
we're
Miss
like,
Marvel dead?
Yeah, less than 2 months ago. Like they didn't really leave that long. I mean, it's good that she's coming back because her death was not very culturally sensitive for a lot of reasons.
And not in her own book or Miles'.
Not in her own book, as a supporting character in another book. And no offense to the writer of the book with what I'm about to say. This isn't anything against him, but like, I don't think it's appropriate for the first Muslim female superhero that Marvel has to be killed by a white man writer in a white man's book. It's nothing against Wells.
100.
I had a great interview with him at C2E2. He was a nice guy.
Yeah, no. 100%.
I just, you know.
How's the Spider-Gwen book?
It's a miniseries right now.
Okay.
She doesn't have an ongoing, and it's kind of
Okay.
like Spider-Gwen shadow clones or whatever. Like, or there's like Sinister Six like Gwen clones. It's weird.
Her book,
like the Sand Gwen and Gwenvin the Hunter and Dr. Gwen Octopus.
Okay.
Like,
it's just take a man's tail and give it to a woman and
one of the teenagers saw a picture of like your current look and they said she looks like Gwen from Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, that's a compliment. You know, I've always, you know, I shouldn't say always, but I've wanted to get a an eyebrow ring. So. Yeah. Anywho, okay.
I'll just call you Gwanda.
Gwanda, okay.
Why didn't you come see me, Stella?
So I'm about
Who's
to prattle.
Toby?
Oh my gosh. I'm about to prattle off a bunch of books that I've read from my young adult literature class, and I'll let you know if I recommend them or not. So New Kid by Jerry Craft is a graphic novel. Highly recommend that. I don't know how it's possible, but this was challenged. Yeah, it's very interesting, but I highly recommend that. The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. 5 stars out of 5 stars, which I do not often get. So please read that. American Murderer by Gail Jarrow, which is about hookworm and the discovery of hookworm. And I recommend it if only till I get some knowledge about hookworm, but also it's very disturbing to see people with pictures of the hookworms that they have evacuated from their bowels. They're holding them up all clean. I'm like, I don't know why you do that. When You Trap a Tiger by Ty Keller, it was okay. Yeah, I didn't really like how it began. It's really in medias res, but it just starts with a lot of conflict, and then you kind of don't really mellow out from the conflict until the very end. So that was not the best. I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys, which I recommended. It takes place in Romania in 1989, start of the fall of the Iron Curtain. And just, I mean, it was a place that I am not as aware of, or a time period in which I'm not well versed in. So I do recommend that. And it's like Suspicion and Paranoia. It was very good. Aliens Infiltrator by Weston Ochse, which is the prequel to the game that Harry and I frequently play, Aliens Fireteam Elite. So I got to see little Honecker doing all of that business. Punch in the Air by Ida Zaboy and Youssef Salam, which I also highly recommend. Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson, I don't recommend. I have many writing critiques about that. I reread The Oracle Code, which I already was a bit cool on. I made a book trailer on that, which you can actually go on Batgirl Oracle and see that book trailer for an assignment. So that's why I had to reread it. Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. It's the remix of Stamped from the Beginning by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. I recommend it, but I personally like the OG better. You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. Highly recommend this. I think this is better than Piecing Me Together, which they both talk about poverty and people of color. Midnight Horizon by Daniel Jose Older, which is a High Republic novel. It was okay. Other Words for Home by Jasmine Warga. Recommend. Immigrants from Syria, a young girl and her mother. And then the last book I read is When Stars Are Scattered by Victoria Jameson and Omar Mohammed, which takes place in a refugee camp in Kenya. And that is also a graphic novel. And I've started Firekeeper's Daughter, which is thick, 500 pages. So I'm glad I'm ahead by 2 books. And then I think I have one left. That'll be the class. So there you go. Lots of things for you to read. If you're interested in my reading list, if that doesn't help you, me just prattling things off, email me and I can email you my syllabus, because each week actually we were given a choice on what to read, with the exception of Stamped. Everyone had to read that. So you have like 20 books or so that you could read through. But yeah, come up with your own opinion. Okay, well, Josue, would you like to pimp your wares, as the people say?
Indeedy. So dc.com/news. As of this recording, I just did a piece about the evolution of Lois and Clark's first meetings, like how they meet for the first time in various continuities, from like the Silver Age, where they met at summer camp, or Smallville, where like he was naked in a field and Erica Durance was like wah 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 wah. Or Man of Steel, where he held her down as he cauterized her room with his heat vision and she screamed in pain. And then, of course, Mario Kidder, like, you got me? Who's got you? That was a fun article to write. Thepopverse.com, I have content on there all the time now. That's been great. And we're about to go to San Diego Comic-Con. If you're, depending on when this is released, if you're at San Diego Comic-Con, I will be there with Donovan. If you see a short girl with us, that's not Stella. That's our friend. This has happened before, where like our friend Kat, who's a great person. You might love having her on the show. She does YouTube too and podcasts, so you two should get together sometime. But it's funny, people like will see Donovan and I together and like a short brunette girl, and they're like, "Oh, it must be Stella." And I'm like, "Not Stella. This is someone else." But if you see us, say hi, message us, give us a protein bar, because we're probably hungry if you see us at Comic-Con. And
food is gross. Yeah, bring your own food. Do you think Donovan will be naked?
At one point, probably. He'll have to be. He can't shower without being naked.
Oh,
now, if he's naked at the airport, then we're going to have a problem.
Woof. Yeah, I know. Seriously.
What if he shows up naked to a press room?
I couldn't say what'll happen. I mean, he'll be tackled to the ground. It won't be good. It won't be good, because he's a black man getting tackled to the ground. It won't be good.
Naked.
Okay. Yeah, naked. Yeah. Well, per usual, you can send any questions or comments back to theoracle@gmail.com. What was the poll we were going to do as we went into Act 3?
Accessing Mertoni memories.
Was it about Leslie? Whose fault do you think it more is? Was it that?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Whose fault is gang war, Stephanie or Batman?
Okay, so there you go. I guess maybe I'll have a poll closer to the next episode. But if you're watching this or listening, then you can obviously respond to that. And then, yeah, any thoughts? I guess I'd love to hear from people who were reading this at the time, whether you're kind of picking up on the misogyny and the racism that was going down, or that was just something that perhaps the veil had not been dropped from your eyes at that point in time in 2004. Obviously, no shame, we all have growth. I don't think I would have realized that. I mean, I was thinking back, because remember in the beginning of Batgirl Oracle, I would have fake ads.
Yeah,
I had a fake ad for black mask like torture devices or something, and I was thinking about that yesterday. I was like, now that I know the context, I shouldn't have done that.
Listen.
So as you can see, we all have growth and learning experiences. So if that is something that you have to say, then I wish I'd shame you. Yeah, as long as you've learned and grown. Yes, yeah. Yes.
I've said before that I love Amazing Spider-Man Classics. I had a lot of fun on there, but I've done a lot of stuff on that show that has not aged well. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of unintentional misogyny in some of the Betty Brant bashing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. That I regret in retrospect.
Yeah.
It wasn't intentional misogyny, but whether misogyny is intentional or not, it's not okay.
Yeah.
Because you are adding to an energy and a narrative.
Yeah.
When you blame a fictional woman for something that real life white men wrote her to do, you're not putting the blame on the men who wrote the scene and who decided that the woman was going to do this. You are blaming the fictional woman with a passion and vitriolic energy. It was fun podcasting, but all the stuff we did in like 2009, 2010 hasn't aged well.
Yeah.
We also told some inappropriate sex jokes during classics as well.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's important that we recognize that we've grown, or we recognize problematic.
I had a cold a few days ago, so if I'm sniffling and coughing, that's why. Just
Okay.
FYI, listeners.
Subscribe to the show on YouTube for an uncut version and see facial reactions and all of that jazz, little capybara, etc. Follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Batgirl Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. And until next time, which will be Act 3 of War Games, what do you have to say?
Fly on, Babs lovers!
Just plain Barbara Gordon, masquerading for a lark as she rides into the night on her special Batgirl cycle. Who knows? Is the dynamic duo destined to become the triumphant trio? Only time will tell us more about this dazzling daredoll.
I love a happy ending, don't you?